Welcome back. This video is a compilation of my previous deep dive episodes, which can all individually be found on the channel. So if you haven't watched any of them, or you like to watch them all again back to back, here you go. Reddit is a platform where people can share their stories and experiences with the world. While many posts are lighthearted and humorous, others are more serious and cautionary. November 2nd, 2022, Reddit user Pale Jellyfish went onto the RIB subreddit and posted the following. Creepy gift left on my doorstep. So a few weeks ago, I found a purple bag left on my doorstep. Thinking maybe my partner had left me a surprise, I went and grabbed it. Well, it definitely wasn't for my partner, but it was a surprise. In the bag was a lighter and a packet of lube, some loose batteries, 3 pairs of panties, and a note. Pale Jellyfish included pictures of the contents which I have blurred out, as well as a separate picture of the note that was included in the bag. The note reads, "You are yum and awesome. Just go solo, it's easier. Waterproof so the lady weeks are easier." Then the OP goes on to say, "I have a vague feeling it might be my neighbor who often watches me and makes weird remarks to me, but I have no actual proof. I tried going to the police and they made note of the incident, but basically told me they couldn't do anything and that I should get a security camera and trust my gut about who did it. I know this neighbor has been in some kind of trouble with the police before, and I've heard from a girl that I know he has a habit of harassing women. It's creepy enough on its own, but what makes it even weirder is the panties are similar to the ones I bought a few months earlier. But those specific ones have been in my ASOS wishlist since the end of last year-ish. I don't remember showing anyone them, so I'm not sure if it's just a coincidence or if this person has some of my passwords to different accounts. This is unsettling, as OP stated the panties she was given were ones she had planned on buying in the future. She stated it could be a coincidence, but if someone is obsessing and stalking her, it is possible that they may have gained access to her phone." Pale Jellyfish finished her post with the following. "I'm definitely in the process of trying to find some security cameras that I can afford, but I was wondering what options I have here. Is there any way I can do some digging to figure out if it was the guy I think it was, or even find out more info about him? And even if I do, if I find out it was him or catch him in my doorstep, can anything be done?" User Tandem Camel responded to her with some helpful advice. "In terms of cameras, the Waze Cam is only around $30 and works well. Do you trust your landlord or any neighbors other than the shady one? Might be helpful to give someone else a heads up and have them keep their eyes open and help document too. Is your name on your apartment mailbox or by your doorbell? If so, it might be worthwhile to remove or change it if possible to see if that deters anything. Do you have any ex-partners who might do this kind of thing? In that case, I would be careful with your online accounts. Otherwise, maybe coincidence. In case you do need to take more action down the road, be sure to document anything else that happens and update the police." To which OP responded with, "Thank you. Unfortunately, I can't really trust any of my neighbors. There's one that is semi-okay, but I haven't seen him in months, so now I'm not sure if he even lives in my complex anymore. Thankfully, no name or anything on my apartment or mailbox, and I keep my mailbox locked at all times so it can't be snooped through. In terms of ex-partners, it's a possibility, but I haven't had any contact with any of them since things ended, and they didn't end in a particularly bad or messy way. It's definitely something I'm going to consider though. Thank you." User Pencap replied with, "This makes me think the person doing this is a peeping Tom," to which Pale Jellyfish responded, "Oh, 100%, which matches up with the fact he told me he can see when I'm up late at night, and when my neighbor confirmed he was told the same thing." Also stated in a separate reply about her experience with the police, "I did give them some info on the other run-ins I had with him, all of which are either him watching me from the street, going through my garbage, or incessantly asking if I'm by myself and to come over to his house or let him into mine. And I actually made a call to the police about a week ago now, because he and another neighbor got into an altercation over him being too loud, and he ended up getting pretty aggressive, and from what I can tell was threatening her. Cops showed up and they continued to bicker back and forth for a while until the police left after doing seemingly nothing. Super helpful of them." Her final update on the situation: "Hi. I had a run-in today with a different neighbor, which is bringing up the question of which one was it, but so far things with the original guy are mostly quiet. He's been a little weird, watching me a few times as I leave my apartment, but he hasn't approached me, thankfully." The police seem to be of no help to Pale Jellyfish. Hopefully the situation doesn't escalate and whatever person is harassing her leaves her alone. Installing security cameras will hopefully deter or at least provide more information on the creep. But as of the time of this recording, it's been 4 months and we have no further updates. The story of an anonymous user who recounts their experience with biker gang debt was shared on r/Let's Not Meet on October 5th of 2022. The post starts off like this: "I owed a biker gang $260K and ran. This is a true story, hence the throwaway account, and it's one of the first times I've ever told it to anyone. The post is mod verified, indicating that the OP provided proof to validate his story. In this part of the post, the OP reveals that they had a short history of dealing drugs in the past, but had gotten clean and was working 3 jobs to save for college. However, tragedy struck when a close relative was murdered, and the cost of returning their body to their home country and arranging a funeral fell on the OP and 2 other relatives. Feeling financially strained and desperate for a way to make money, OP reached out to a mutual friend, Josh, who had a relative named Mike that was a member of a biker gang. OP set up a meeting with Mike to discuss business and gathered a team of hand-picked dealers at their house. Mike arrived with 2 pounds of weed, and OP's plan was to distribute the drug to the runners while working their regular jobs to make a passive income. Despite the risk of getting involved with the biker gang, OP took the opportunity, feeling young, stupid, and wanting to replace a lost feeling with something that would make them feel better about themselves at the time. In this part of the post, OP described how his business was running smoothly and making a lot of money. OP was on vacation, and before they left, it seems they left a larger amount of product than usual with one of the runners. However, she ran out of the product and was unable to pay the full amount owed when OP returned. Although the OP was upset, they trusted their friend and decided to recover the loss on their own. Unfortunately, this caused OP to be late for a meeting with Mike, the biker gang member who had supplied the product. This delay would have unforeseen and serious consequences for the OP. The next part goes as follows. Now, remember when I said that you should never trust a biker unless you operate on the inside? I met up with Mike to let him know what happened, apologized for being late, and informed him that the situation had been dealt with. But Mike was furious. He tells me that because I was late, he was late for his meeting with the Connect for the weed, and since he was late, his Connect would never deal with him again. He told me to meet him at Josh's house and bring whoever was responsible for making me late, and if I didn't bring them, then I would be held accountable, because this Connect had made him $5,000 a week in profit. Yeah, you read that right. This man told me that him being late once to solve the profitable relationship with a Connect that earned him $5,000 a week. I already knew what this meant for my runner. We were really good friends, and there's no way I was going to allow a single mother to go through what I knew was coming. So I showed up to Josh's house on my own and waited for Mike. It seems as though the OP decided to take the blame for himself in an effort to spare his friend from the consequences. I sat on Josh's couch for what felt like hours, by myself, and uncertain of the extent of what was going to happen. But then Mike walks in, greets Josh, talks with his partners a bit, while completely ignoring me. First 5 minutes go by, then 10 minutes. In this next section of the post, OP describes how they were brutally attacked by Mike. Mike hit the OP across the head and continued to beat them for several minutes, causing the OP to lose consciousness. When OP regained consciousness, Mike threatened them with a handgun and demanded payment of $260,000, the profit he would have made from his Connect every week for the next year. He gave the OP a deadline to make the payments and seized his car. OP realized that Mike planned to use them as a human ATM and exploit them until he had a reason to get rid of them. So I went home and thought about my options. I had around $17,000 in cash, my RRSP savings, which amounted to just over $35,000, but even that would only get me by on the payments for a week. I realized that even if I was able to come up with half of the money, I would end up in jail or worse. After 24 hours of deliberating, I considered the fact that Mike had never met any of my runners. My family had moved away from town after the death of my relative. There was no way that I was going to risk my life or freedom for some arbitrary debt, so I took all my cash, made my savings available, and I knew I only had 24 hours to run as fast and as far as I could. With seemingly no other options, OP decides it's best to flee and get as far away from Mike as possible. OP describes the timeline of their escape. At 4:30 a.m., they gathered clothes, called a friend for help, and took a bus to the Greyhound station. After purchasing a ticket for a city with an airport, they removed the battery from their phone and began their escape. At 12:30 p.m., they arrived in a new city, where they cut their hair and adopted a new name. However, at 8 p.m., while checking their Facebook, they discovered that their former associates had kicked in their door and were actively looking for them. In the final section of the post, the OP reflects on the aftermath of their encounter with the gang and how it affected their life. They describe how they had to change their identity, constantly move around, and cut off contact with friends and family due to the danger they faced from the gang. They also discovered that the gang leader, Mike, had a pattern of exploiting dealers for money and then disposing of them, even resorting to murder in some cases. Despite the trauma of this experience, OP claims to have made positive changes in their life, including getting a good job, owning a home, and being engaged. This Reddit post brought attention to a channel with a chilling account of abuse and manipulation. According to the post, Pet Limitless is a fake animal rescue channel that has been reusing the same kittens in many videos for fake stories and fake rescues to gain views and to make profit. But the post goes much further than that. detailing allegations of staged abuse and even murder. The post goes as followed. I'm so sorry to be posting this, but I just don't know what else to do. I've seen so many other similar posts of fake animal rescues on YouTube, and this is one of them. The channel name is Pet Limitless. It's another fake animal rescue channel that abuses kittens and pretends to rescue them for views. He's reusing the same kittens in many videos for fake stories and fake rescues to gain views and profit. In one of his last videos, he staged a fake story of a kitten getting poisoned, which he probably did himself, and either killed or buried it alive. I and others have reported him on YouTube, but no action has been taken yet, and I just don't know what to do. Please, the more he gets away with it, the more he will endanger kittens and animals, as evident by his latest videos. Please help reporting him and raising the issue. Please check this video on how to report animal abuse content on YouTube, either for selected videos or the channel itself. Please help save innocent kittens and animals from this guy. Please. The OP provides a link to the scam channel which takes you to the page. At first glance, it appears as if it's a wholesome pet channel, but if the allegations that the OP is saying are true, it paints a much more sinister picture. Despite reports from the OP and other users, no action has been taken by YouTube and the channel remains up. In the post, there are multiple links to videos on how to identify these sorts of scams. I'll be providing them in the description. We also get an update on the kitten. Found the earlier video of the same kitten the guy had later claimed he found on the road with foam next to it, meaning that 100% the kitten was in his care. 100% is the same kitten, and 100% he is responsible for its death, burying it while fake crying on the video. That kitten didn't deserve that death. This appears to be the same kitten alive in his care. Found clues that the guy responsible lives in Vietnam. This makes it difficult as there are no animal protection laws there, and might make it difficult to find or catch him. However, I am trying to see if there are any animal rescue groups there who I can contact to see if they can do anything with relation to this guy. A long shot, but it's better than anything. If the page owner is in fact in Vietnam, then contacting authorities could prove to be difficult, but what you can do as an individual is report the channel and their videos, in hopes they get demonetized and no longer have the incentive to exploit these animals. At the end of the post, we see that PETA has gotten involved, informing us that they are in the process of contacting YouTube and urging people to report this kind of behavior. These posts show the potential dangers and real-world consequences of online interaction and criminal activity. It's important to be aware of these issues and take action to report and prevent them. These stories serve as cautionary tales and reminders to be vigilant and cautious of our online and offline interactions. My cousin was trafficked to Myanmar. Second time posting this because I forgot to switch to an alt. He went for a job interview to be a translator in Bangkok, but when he landed there, he was kidnapped and kept in prison for about 3 days. The only reason his mom knows is because he called her through the scam phone to tell her about everything. My aunt has been in contact with the ministers and NGOs to help bring him back, to no luck so far. What do we do? This is terrifying. OP's cousin is being forced to work in a call center in a foreign country. OP and their cousin were originally from Malaysia, and Bangkok is only about 900 miles from there. But after being kidnapped, OP's cousin has ended up 1,600 miles away from their family. Reddit was quick to offer advice. There might be some names you could contact and ask for advice in this article. It's a recent ProPublica expose on human trafficking to scammer call centers. You can try contacting the journalist who wrote the story on his email provided there, and see if he can provide you with any contacts, or the rescuer from Hong Kong. Good luck and be careful. This Redditor provided a link to an article about these call centers. According to the article, human traffickers are increasingly using their cyber scamming to exploit and profit from their victims. This phenomenon has only recently come to light in the US, with the most widely used technique among these operations being known as pig butchering. This technique involves setting up fake job postings and recruiting vulnerable individuals, often undocumented immigrants, to work as money mules in a scam operation. The victims are then forced to open bank accounts, which are often used to launder money obtained through the online fraud. These trafficking rings often use violence and coercion to keep their victims in line, with some victims being threatened with physical harm to themselves and to their families if they try to leave. As terrifying as it might sound, this could be a good explanation as to what's happening to the OP's cousin. Bo_Buffett replied with, "Your cousin was kidnapped to make scam phone calls? We know about the interview, but you need to be able to describe for whoever will investigate what nationality he is, and what languages he speaks, and what language the scam call center is using to call people. Are they calling Thais? The US? If you can still communicate, you need to establish where in Bangkok he was kidnapped. Your country's embassy needs to know this because they need to put out an alert that people from your country are being kidnapped to work in Myanmar. If you want to get him back, I think the easiest way is to offer a ransom. The problem with the ransom is that it's easy for them to collect the money, but not to get him back. The article shows that someone was asked for roughly around $12,000 for a ransom, but it doesn't say if they paid or if they got him back. The other thing to do in the meantime is research. This search shows how common this is. I had no idea. Determining his location is important. This article mentions people being trafficked to an area called Shui-Koko. The potentially good news is that this area is right around the border from Thailand. It's good that he's not somewhere deeper in. The commenter is helpful, but the OP hasn't mentioned anything about offering a ransom for their cousin, and there doesn't seem to be a direct form of contact from the kidnappers to the family. OP replied with, "From what I've heard, he is at Shui-Koko. Regardless, nothing can be done by NGOs or ministers. At least that's what they told my aunt. Embassy is also not responding, so we were trying to get in contact with an old Thai general that might be able to help. Edit. He was kidnapped from the airport in Bangkok." OP would later discover that their cousin was actually in Miyawadi, and another Reddit user would also comment, "There's this NGO called Malaysia International Humanitarian Organization that's been making news lately about this issue. Don't bother to contact them, just a bunch of political clowns. Call Datuk Seri Michael Chong of MCA Public Complaints Bureau. He's been very effective in rescuing victims so far. Has rescued a few dozen people already. He's even got a guy there on the grounds." OP's response was, "My aunt has reached out to Daku Seri Michael Chong already, but so far there's nothing much that can be done. Right now, she's getting in contact with an old retired Thailand general who might be able to negotiate with them." Edit on Michael Chong. Apparently what she was told by him was that he's as good as dead. Many other Redditors would also give their advice, but it looks as if OP has already done everything they can, from contacting state officials to ministries and even retired military, all of which have been little to no help. And that's pretty much it. No other updates have been posted by the OP, so we have no way of knowing if their cousin can or has been rescued. We can only hope that their cousin returns safely, but as of the time of this recording, it's been 5 months, and until OP posts again, the situation remains unresolved. November 20th, 2022, a now deleted user posted the following on the RIP subreddit. "Why is this person waving a white cloth at their window? This is probably totally absurd and I'm sorry about that. There's a person across the alley waving a white cloth outside their mostly shut window and has been doing it for 2 hours. I can't see anything but the white cloth in their hand. The rest of the window is covered up. I live in a bad neighborhood, one of the worst in Chicago, not semi-bad. There are shootings almost every day. My first thought was some weird gang thing, but I wrote it off as being paranoid and dumb. I also thought maybe it was someone trying to signal for help. 2 straight hours? That's very strange. Can anyone come up with an answer for this?" They also provided this picture. Multiple Redditors immediately told the OP to call the police, stating that it could be somebody asking for help. The OP agreed and called them, and as the situation unfolded, the OP kept us updated. "Call the cops. They're on their way." "Okay, the police are finally here. They're going up the fire escape. They hit their shoulder against the door really hard and it opened. They're now leading a woman down the fire escape and into a cruiser. One of them told me that a particular man living in that unit is in and out of jail all the time. But that's unfortunately all the information I could get. I'm glad she's okay, and I hope she doesn't go back. The lady was crying pretty hard. I feel so bad for not taking action earlier. If there's any articles about this tomorrow, I'll post them on here." Now, I wasn't able to find a link to an article, but the OP would give us a final update on the situation. "I called my local precinct today and asked what happened. I talked to one of the 6 officers that came out and helped. I unfortunately didn't get much information other than she and her daughter, who I didn't see last night, are safe. I'm starting to realize there may not be a news article. This happened in West Garfield Park, one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in Chicago. If there was an article for every single day a crime was committed, every newspaper would be as long as Crime and Punishment. But if there is any additional information, I will be absolutely certain to post here. I'm in West Garfield Park because I'm taking care of a sick relative, not because I want to live here. Just addressing the 'why does she live in West Garfield Park' statements. Thanks everyone for the awards. I hope you have a great day." We may not know everything that happened, but hopefully the OP took that woman out of an abusive situation. The white cloth she was waving out the window may have been her only way of signaling for help, so it's a good thing that the OP noticed and took action. This next post was uploaded over 4 years ago, December 6, 2018. User Schmitting the Bed went onto the Let's Not Meet subreddit and posted the following. Former coworker is still my neighbor. Summer 2017, I was working at a pharmacy. I had been there for 4 years. A new staff pharmacist around my age was hired. He seemed odd, but I was nice to him because everyone else was rude to him immediately, and I felt bad. He asked me way too many questions. Some I answered and others crossed boundaries. Fast forward a few months later, and my mom and stepdad told me they met our new neighbor. My mom said he seemed like a really nice young man. The next time I worked with him, I asked if it was him, and he said no. I let it go for a little bit. Then another time, he started asking me questions describing my backyard and asking if my street name started with a letter it did. So he admitted it was him. I asked him how he knew it was my house. He said he saw me in the backyard. He decided not to say anything to me. This is weird. Why lie about moving next to somebody you work with almost every day? Keeping up with the lie not only at work but at your own home sounds exhausting. And all of this to eventually admit that you do live next to the person is pretty odd to say the least. OP continued with their post. The next few months were weird. I was still friendly with him as a coworker, but he crossed some boundaries. He knew my birthday was coming up, and my brother was asking for ideas as to what to get me. I wanted a certain phone case, so I was browsing on my phone to send my brother links of the ones I wanted. He would always look over my shoulder when I was on my phone. He saw the type of phone case. He got me the phone case and a $150 loaded Visa gift card. I told him that I felt the gift was inappropriate and probably against company policy. I walked over to his mailbox while he was at work to return it. He kept putting it back in my mailbox with messages of him begging me to accept it because it made him so happy. I ended up giving it away. Not much longer after that, I took my coworker to the zoo. I had some of it on my Snapchat story. He kept messaging me on Snapchat asking questions about it, and it was bothering me, so I blocked him. After that, he called my mother and told her that he needed to talk to her. He told her that he needed to come over and talk to her, so she invited him in and they talked. I was very alarmed by this, but she thought it was endearing. I told him once again at work that he crossed boundaries, and he said that he does everything he does because he cares about me. He didn't understand where I was coming from at all. This is obsessive behavior. OP's coworker is showing signs of being controlling, seemingly wanting to monitor everything that OP does by continuously asking her questions, even to the point of contacting the OP's mother when the OP does not respond. OP finishes the post. Those were the most standout things he's done. Also a lot of pestering about tell me who your boyfriend is and trying to look at pictures in my phone to figure it out. Going through coworkers' phones and reading their conversations with me. One time he even cornered me at work and wouldn't let me leave until I told him what characteristics I look for in a guy. He was also mad at me when I got my birth control prescription filled, even though it was being used to correct hormonal problems from another birth control. I started being mean to him at work because I couldn't take it anymore. He then told me that I was treating him in that way because he's a nice guy who cares about me, and that I'm looking for a jerk. It became a very hostile work environment, and I left about 2 months ago. This is a side note. Other coworkers and neighbors hate him because he likes to start confrontations. He also plays he said, she said with people for entertainment. The neighbors have called the police on him and think he's crazy. I haven't heard from him at all since leaving, but I saw my former coworker last week at a get-together. She said that he is trying to get her to tell him where I work now. He told her that he sees me getting into my car every morning, so he knows I have a job. I told my mom about this and she didn't take it seriously. I would just like to get an outside perspective. When I come home late, I run to the door. And if no one's home, I'll wait to take a shower. I'm still scared. Redditors quickly commented on the post, informing OP that they were being stalked. User Tipsy Turtles replied, basically full-on stalking. Don't doubt your instincts at all. Guy's a piece of shit. Tara Leo 16 also commented on the post. I've been a pharmacy technician for 10 years now. I've run into a couple of odd pharmacists myself. Why did you not report his actions to the company? You could have filed a harassment complaint. Maybe contacted the board of pharmacy to check if they could do anything. He sounds like a complete stalker and you should have reported. To which the OP replied, I went back and forth on doing this, but I'm worried about retaliation, because if he loses his job or license, he'll know that it's due to me, and he'll still be my neighbor and could do something worse. Being the victim of a stalker is terrifying enough, but having your stalker living only a few houses down from you is a whole nother level. The fear of retaliation and the closeness of the stalker leaves the OP in a difficult position, and for 4 long years, we would not hear about the situation again. Until on October 27th of 2022, when we got a long-awaited update from the OP. Hi everyone. Here's an update from a post I made a few years ago about a scary neighbor. Last night I looked out the window and there were multiple police cars and an ambulance. I found out later that my neighbor married a young girl from the same country as him. She doesn't speak much English and doesn't have a family here. She's been here for a few months. He seldom let her leave the house and even go into the backyard. My other neighbors managed to catch her outdoors once or twice and managed to get her phone number. She said he has cameras all over the house and outside. Last night he was beating and accusing her of cheating, and the cops were called. After that, he shut off her phone service. Last night he attacked her with a knife and my neighbors heard her screaming, so they called the cops for her. Multiple guns and knives were found in the house. I'm going to cut this post short because I'm typing on a tablet with no keyboard, and it's getting cumbersome. After this update, we now know for sure that this man was displaying the signs of a controlling and abusive person. OP was correct in her decision to quit her job and distance herself from him, because there's no way of knowing what he could have or would have done if she stuck around. Reddit user Maxwell Hill was a moderator of many huge subs including r/world news, r/politics, and r/technology. With almost 15 million post karma, this user was one of the most influential users on the platform. The last post was a news article uploaded to r/technology on June 30th of 2020, but since then, the account appears to be inactive. A user going inactive is nothing out of the ordinary, but this was one of the most powerful users on the site. To suddenly stop posting is a bit odd. Many Redditors took notice of the user's disappearance. After a bit of time, Redditors began to speculate as to who this user actually was, and on July 8th of 2020, Reddit user BGNY went onto the r/conspiracy subreddit claiming he knew who Maxwell Hill was. Not confirmed, but research suggests that user Maxwell Hill, the Reddit account with the 8th most linked karma of all time, power modded the front page subs like r/world news and r/technology, and first account to reach 1 million karma, is/was operated by Ghislaine Maxwell. The user provides evidence to back up their claims, stating that the account posted every day for 14 years up until Maxwell's arrest. They pointed out the gaps in posting correlation lining up with the death of Maxwell's mother, also providing links to other potential stock accounts created around the same time. Ghislaine was arrested on July 2nd of 2020, and the last post on the account was on June 30th of the same year. This matches up, and the post also pointed out that the Maxwell Hill account listed their birthday was in December. Ghislaine's birthday falls on December 25th. The post provides a lot more information, and I'll be linking it in the description if you want to look through it yourself. While we don't have solid evidence that the account was in fact Ghislaine's, the patterns are definitely there. Was one of the most influential Reddit accounts ran by one of the most evil people on the planet? It's very likely, but let me know what you think in the comments. Maxwell Hill was the first account to ever reach 1 million karma. Could this have been a result of her underworld connections? We'll probably never get a clear answer, and it brings into question the true identities of those running the internet's biggest platforms. This post is now archived, but it was uploaded onto the r/legal advice sub on February 15th of 2015. User Concerned Hubs posted the following. Need advice on talking to police regarding my wife. My wife has not returned home since she went out shopping late Saturday. It's getting to the point where I think I should call the police and file a missing persons report. I would like to be as helpful as possible when speaking to the police, but I want to avoid triggering any suspicions about me. I hear a lot of stories about husbands being falsely accused when something happens. Should I only give them information in response to specific questions? Is there anything I should not bring up? I'm planning on contacting the police tomorrow morning. I can't postpone much longer as I'm getting messages asking about her, and I don't want to say anything to her friends or family until I file a report first. I now realize that I should have talked to her friends and family first, but at this point I don't want to explain why I didn't file a report yet. The post was very suspicious, and Redditors were understandably concerned. Many of them were claiming that the OP had actually killed his wife and was looking for advice on how to not look suspicious. User Divorce Throwaway commented, "You've got to be trolling here. The police can be overly suspicious in cases where the wife just completely disappears. Your priorities are completely out of whack, and the longer you wait to report her missing, the worse it's going to make you look. Your wife is missing, and your main concern is how it makes you look?" To which the OP replied with, "By being overly suspicious, I mean that the husband is automatically the first person to be suspected, even when there's no reason other than being her husband. This can easily lead the police to barking up the wrong tree and not looking where they should be. That's one of the reasons to avoid triggering suspicion, to prevent the police from wasting resources and going down the wrong path. So it's just not a selfish matter of what could happen to me. It is not my main concern. My main concern is getting my wife back home safe. My concern about avoiding suspicion is a secondary concern. It's not unreasonable to be both concerned about getting my wife home safe and secondarily wanting to avoid being falsely accused. There are a lot of innocent people who get convicted for acting stupid and saying the wrong thing to the police. Everybody in the comments seemed to believe that the OP had in fact killed his wife. And the OP would go back and forth with many users saying he attempted to contact her and that there was no foul play. In his last reply to one of the comments, he said, "I'll be updating soon. Today's been both exhausting and enlightening. One thing I learned today is that the local cops are quite the idiots," implying that he had contacted the police and that they were no help. We never got any video or photo proof that his wife was alive and well, but the OP would provide a final update on his original post. Update. It turns out she left a note for me saying that she was leaving town for a while to spend time with an old friend, so there's no need to report her missing as of now. I'm going to have my wife's best friend make some calls to my wife's family and friends to let them know she's okay. After this, there were no more posts uploaded by this account, leaving Redditors to wonder if the update was true or just another lie to hopefully satisfy the users accusing OP of being suspicious. Do you think he did it? User wife going crazy went onto the r/relationship sub on January 7th of 2016 with a post detailing the concerns about the behaviors his wife was displaying. He states that his wife has always been somewhat of a joker, and after binge watching all of Battlestar Galactica, the pair seemed to disagree on how they felt about the movies. OP liked them, but his wife did not. This led to his wife becoming mad, to which the OP wrote it off as her being fed up with being sick all week. The OP would go on a business trip the following morning, and when they returned, they stated that their wife was acting strange, not speaking to him in the mornings, except for handing him a brown lunch bag, where she said, "It's cold out there, better hoagie down." The OP states that she continued this behavior the following week, not speaking to him only except to say, "It's cold out there, better hoagie down," followed by her going into the bathroom and slamming the door. When OP would ask her about this in the evening, his wife repeatedly denied acting that way. In a further update, the OP said, "Woke up an hour ago with a huge headache. Went to the fridge to grab a protein smoothie and saw that it had been cleared of what little food we had in there. Wife was not in the house. Got dressed and went to the door with the intent of going to get some food. Saw a brown paper bag with, 'It's cold out there, better hoagie down,' written in cursive taped to the door. I opened the bag and a can of ginger ale was in there. I went outside and her car's still there, but as far as I can tell, she took her wallet, keys, and coat. We live about 5 minutes outside a nice town, and she likes to take long walks, so I'm assuming that's where she is. This has officially gone way too far. I'm going to wait an hour and see if she comes home or if her parents return my calls. If not, I'm driving to her parents to hopefully make sense of the situation. Bring in the video of her in the bag. We'll update tonight. Hopefully." Followed by, "No sign of her. Got a call from her parents that was just sounds of them arguing in the background. Hung up after about 30 seconds. No idea what that's about. Driving there now." This is where the story takes a turn. In a second update, the OP provides more information as to what's going on with him and his wife. In the second post, the OP explains how he's been taking Benadryl to help him fall asleep at night. After searching for his Benadryl and being unable to find it, the OP decided to take some of his wife's Benadryl, not knowing that in her bottle was actually her old Seroquel medication. This is when everything unfolded. Back to where OP was heading to his wife's parents' home. He began to feel dizzy and had to pull over. When he got to his in-laws, he was erratic and sweating profusely. His wife's father came to the door followed by his wife, who informed OP that she had actually been gone for 2 whole days. She told her husband that he had been terrorizing her and her daughter and provided videos that backed up the claims. In the videos, the OP was seen banging on doors and yelling at them to come out. Another showed him just standing still, looking into nothing. It was at this point that the OP began to feel nauseous and collapsed. When he woke up in the hospital, he learned that the Seroquel might have put him into a manic episode, and that his family could have a history of schizophrenia. The combination of drugs and the argument that had happened between him and his wife likely triggered a psychotic episode which the OP had no idea was going on. And just like that, the story of a man who had feared his wife was going crazy turned into the story of a person who was losing their mind themselves. Let me know what you think about these Reddit posts, and if you have anything that you want me to explore, make sure to leave it in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and as always, thank you for watching. November 29th of 2020, at approximately 11:09 p.m., Reddit user Lost and Confused 11225 went onto the RBI subreddit and posted the following. Disturbing series of events. To start off, a couple months ago, my buddies and I got a house together in hopes of living together since we've known each other for years now. A few weeks into living at the house, one of the guys called us while we were at work one night to tell us that there was an organ at our doorstep. We all thought he was trying to mess with us until he FaceTimed us. And there on our doorstep was some type of organ. We aren't doctors, but it looked like a liver or something. We were a little freaked out and just assumed that some kids were trying to mess with us. Ever since then, we hadn't had anything happen. Until last night. We were all home in the basement watching the Mike Tyson fight, drinking a few beers when we decided to head outside in the backyard and start a fire. And we found another organ sitting on the floor outside of the back door. It looked like it was just put there, but we didn't know for sure because we don't have any cameras or anything. We're 4 grown men, and we're kind of freaking out about these organs showing up at our house without anything telling us why or how. And I just want to know what to do. I have a picture of it, but I don't know how to post it because I'm new. If anyone can tell me how, I'll gladly share it. In an update, the OP would also provide a picture of what appears to be a liver right outside their home, which I've blurred out for YouTube. Could this be some twisted prank from the OP's friends or neighbors? Maybe an animal is leaving organs outside the house, similar to the way a cat will bring mice and birds to their owners. In a second update, the OP and their roommates would explore these theories. So a lot of you guys were saying that I should talk to the neighbors, so I asked everyone on the street if they had ever had anything like this happen. All of them said that they've never had anything like this happen to them. I also called the original owners of the house to confirm they didn't have a cat. They only had dogs, but they said that it had happened once to them, but they never had it happen twice. I also went ahead and filed a report with the cops. They came over, looked around the house, and swept the woods nearby, but ultimately they couldn't find anything, and they suggested just getting cameras. We bought the cameras and are waiting for them to come in. We really don't think an animal brought this liver to us. There are no marks, so it's getting creepy thinking that someone is trying to mess with us. The cameras are coming in, and I'll keep everyone updated as much as I can on who's doing this or what we find. This seems to bring up more questions than answers. The OP is correct. If a wild animal was the one leaving these organs on their doorstep, there would probably be some form of bite marks or tracks. The organs are too clean, so it's more likely that a person is leaving them. In a third update, the OP goes deeper into one of their neighbors' experience. So earlier in the day, we tried to talk to the neighbors, but some weren't home, which is explained in the second update. I came home from work. My housemate let me know that one of the neighbors that wasn't home earlier was home now, so we decided to take a walk over there to get his input on the matter, and he said some stuff that intrigued us to say the least. He said he had something along the same lines happen to him, that he had found organs in his fenced-off dog pen. It disturbed him at the time, and was glad to find out that he wasn't the only one. He said that he didn't install cameras at first because he thought it was a tasteless prank some kids tried to pull on him due to it being around Halloween. However, it happened one more time about 3 weeks ago. He had a Ring doorbell, but installed cameras after and said nothing has happened since, but he's been waiting to catch it. Also, he did contact the police, which they told him the same thing they told us. I don't know how dead-ass the claim is. He seemed like he wasn't exaggerating. He was kind enough to send us the photo which he took when he brought the dog out. It's hard to say who is doing this or why it's happening, but we have our neighbor's number now, so we'll keep in touch on anything that happens between us. I don't know for sure if this is some kind of dark prank or something more sinister. Digging deeper into the OP's profile, I managed to find this other post on the RBI sub, in which a Redditor compiles several other instances of people receiving organs as a gift. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check it out for yourself. A Reddit user by the name of Hand of God provided a link to a news article in which a family in California captured footage of a man leaving organs on their doorstep. Could this be the same person leaving the organs at OP's home? I couldn't find any information on where the OP was located, so I can't say for sure. Maybe leaving organs on people's doorstep is some form of ritual, but the OP hasn't posted in 2 years, so until then, the answer remains a mystery. This next post comes from user Outside164 and was posted on December 5th of 2022. It goes like this. My wife is being cyberstalked by her ex-boyfriend. Last year before our wedding, my wife's ex-boyfriend was cyberstalking us. He sent messages from burner accounts to me, my wife, and our families on Instagram, Facebook, and any social media accounts in our names, saying my wife cheated on me with him. Everything went ignored. We didn't want to give him attention. My wife has denied all of his accusations and has been very anxious. Our silence worked because he stopped for a year. But then last week it started up again. He messaged my wife and I from burner accounts saying she cheated. After he told my wife that he had to let me know about her cheating, he sent her an I love you gif. The other day he added me on a different social media site and wrote, "Can we talk?" I had enough and finally broke my silence. I wrote to him, "You have been harassing my wife, our family, and me for years and it needs to stop immediately. Please do not contact any of us ever again." He wrote back saying she cheated on me, and it's not his problem she got called out for it and is mad now. And he feels sorry for me because my whole marriage and relationship is a lie. I replied, "My wife and I have had full transparency and trust with each other since the day we met. Nothing you say or do will change that. Please move on with your life. Do not contact us again or we will get the authorities involved." I hope this is good enough. If he does contact us again, can we get the authorities involved? He's not said anything threatening. He's just been making cheating accusations and it's causing my wife distress. But I am wondering if we have enough evidence to get the authorities involved right now to ensure he never bothers us again. I don't want to wait for the next episode. Many Redditors took to the post and agreed that this was stalking behavior. They recommended that the OP document every interaction with their wife's ex, in case the police ever need to get involved. The person is clearly obsessed with the OP's wife. Regardless on if she cheated on him or not, the ex needs to move on with their life. 3 days later, the OP would provide this update. Yesterday, the boyfriend sent me a message on Google Chat asking why I threatened him, because he never messaged me before until a few weeks ago when he contacted me on LinkedIn. I replied to him and explained what he had done. Once more I said, "Please do not contact us again." Now he's claiming that all those messages were from his batshit crazy ex-girlfriend. He said that she's jealous and hates him and my wife because when he was dating his ex, he cheated on her with my wife. Serial cheater are the ex-girlfriend's words, not his. He kept giving me reasons as to why those other messages weren't from him, and he said that they sound like a jealous woman's voice. Regardless of who sent them, this is giving me a headache, and my wife is having a meltdown. What can we do? I have no proof of who's messaging us. My wife now thinks it's both of them, but again, I have no solid proof. The only proof he messaged me directly is from his LinkedIn account. Everything else was from a burner. This stalker is denying contacting the OP and their wife, even going as far as stating that his ex is behind all this. It's at this point that commenters from the first post come in and remind the OP that he shouldn't be contacting this person, as making contact only feeds into the obsession and weakens any legal position the OP may have. For almost 3 months we got no updates, until February 17th of 2023. My wife's stalker ex-boyfriend now has our home address. My wife's ex-boyfriend has been harassing us online since our wedding last year. While a year of silence went by from him since the first messages, he started up again 2 months ago. A few days ago was my wife's birthday. She got a text from an unknown number wishing her happy birthday. Then an hour later, another text saying, "I sent you back the rest of your stuff like you asked to your address." Did I spell it right? We gathered the screenshots we had saved and visited our local precinct. The police reviewed the material and said that there's really nothing they can do. First of all, we are in a different state from our ex. There have been no threats made, no physical contact, and the person has only messaged us a handful of times. They also said we engaged in conversation with him and nothing can be done there with that. They said what you guys said on here, to not respond, and suggested to shut down social media and look into changing our phone numbers and email addresses. I honestly felt pretty stupid leaving the precinct. My poor wife had to spend her birthday in a police precinct. It was horrible. We didn't answer his text this time and will continue to ignore and block going forward. I hope he doesn't visit our house, but at least we have a police report filed now. This last update was alarming, as the situation has escalated to the point where the ex now has the home address of the OP and their wife. The police are unable or unwilling to do anything, since nothing physical has happened and the OP has communicated back to the stalker. As stated, the OP should have cut contact with this person after the first time they interacted. Commenters also informed the OP that their information is public record and easily accessible through a Google search. Regardless, the fact that this obsessed person is sending gifts to their now married ex is very unsettling. Unfortunately, this update was the last one we got from the OP, but seeing as this is a fairly recent post, we'll likely get another one in the future. User I Lost My Friend went onto the RBI sub on February 21st of 2019 and posted the following. "So I had a friend I met years ago. We were talking on a daily basis until one night he just suddenly disappeared. He just disappeared from everywhere. No email responses, no logins, no nothing. Everything is passive. I thought he might be into some trouble, but today I found out that he might have died, and the name aligns with the person I knew. I'm still shocked and I wasn't able to reach anyone. I don't know anyone from Mexico, and if I had 1 in 2 million chances that someone is from the specific place I wrote in the title, I would like to know about his death and what the hell just happened if that's him. Thank you in advance. I'm desperate. This is the only place I found with a Google search which shows a place where to post. Please DM me if you're from that location. This post exploded. Many Mexican Redditors commented, asking the OP to message them with info on their friends so that they could try to help. After searching for the post in the r/Mexico sub, I was able to find a couple edits that weren't on the original post, which I translated from Spanish. The place where the incident occurred is 50 meters from the National Highway, at the height of El Barro, south of Monterrey. I got this from the article I read. I found an estimated place on Google Maps. Someone explained to me that saying Colonia del Valle is not a correct way to describe a place, and it's not just one specific place, so ignore that in the title. The place must then be Nuevo León, Monterrey. I'm sorry, but I don't really know Mexico, and it's even more difficult to use Google or read things in Spanish when Google Translate doesn't translate correctly. There are some things about the event that align with this person and my friend. However, I don't know their full name, but I do know the metropolitan area where they lived. Part of the name and the time they disappeared match exactly with what I found at the event. I know this is asking a lot, as I don't know if there's a chance that this person in the article could be a completely different person. I couldn't find any comments linking the article that the OP is talking about, and it's likely that somebody sent them the link through a private message, but it looks as if the OP found and attempted to contact the family of the person from the article in some later edits. Reddit, thank you. I think enough information was gathered. Now the next step is to see if the family members want to answer. After that, if the family of the person who died confirms or denies the questions which I know about my friend, we'll determine whether or not this person was my friend or not. Time will tell. We'll update once there's new info. This should be good news. Nothing really adds up with the person who died and my friend. Reddit found Facebook profiles and stuff, but it can't be the same person. Just a coincidence that that person died on the same day my friend disappeared, with identical age and has the same part of the name. Also, people mentioned that this area has 5 million citizens, so it could very likely be someone else. I actually feel shitty to dig up a wrong person and disturb the family, as they had a recent loss. We'll give news if the family responds. For those wondering, family didn't respond to any message. It's understandable that the family wouldn't want to speak on the situation given the circumstances. Events like this happen in Mexico all the time due to the increasing narco violence. Oftentimes people go missing and the families never get an answer as to how. And just a few months later, on June 21st, we got an update from the LP. To those who asked and remember this post, several months ago I somehow managed to get in contact with one of the family members thanks to a Reddit user. Yes, my friend died under suspicious terms, and they're still fighting for more evidence, but it seems like the court there is corrupt and easily bribed. With the help from Redditors in Monterrey, the OP was able to come in contact with the friend's family, only to learn that their missing friend had unfortunately passed away. This was very sad news, but one Redditor noted that the mention of the courts being easily bribed could indicate a possible scam, advising the OP to not use any of their own money in an attempt to gather information on their friend. Another Redditor stated that while it may not have started out as a scam, somebody could have seen the opportunity and taken advantage of it. No more posts or update were given by the OP. Hopefully they didn't get extorted, and if the friend did pass away, I hope that the OP and the family were able to find closure. Lost Butterfly 2020 is a Reddit user with only a single post, which was uploaded onto the RBI sub on August 13th of 2020. Been stalked for the past 2 months, going completely insane. About 2 months ago, my stalker broke into my apartment and completely trashed my place. This was followed by a series of unwanted visits throughout the day and night, always leaving behind a trail of vandalism and destruction on my belongings and property. The approximate damage of the property and belongings is around $2,000 in the course of less than a week. I changed the lock and locked everything valuable in my suitcases. They managed to pick my locks. At this point, I was afraid to touch anything in the house. They contaminated everything from my food in the fridge, my dishware to the bed sheets on my bed, and any sort of cleaning products. If I left my stuff unsupervised for a few minutes, I would find it trashed. They knew exactly when I would take a nap, shower, or use the restroom. I called the police. In spite of the damage to my property and the trash place, the police somehow refused to take me seriously and refused to investigate to see if there were any fingerprints. Out of desperation, I moved everything into a storage unit and decided to move. They followed me into my storage unit by using the car that they had stole from my home while I went to use the washroom that had the passcode and storage unit. Once again, I went to the restroom while sorting my things in the storage unit one late night evening. I put my notebook in the storage unit, locked the storage, and went to the washroom. When I came back, I found the words "hi" in their writing. They went through all my personal documents, journals, and even my documentation of everything that I wrote, and would even cross out random stuff / write down comments using the exact same style and color pink to confuse me. Anyhow, things have gotten progressively worse, as I have fled my home, stayed at a shelter, moved to multiple Airbnbs, hotels, and anything to get away from this person that follows me around all day. They pick my locks and get into locked facilities and rooms while evading public surveillance. What am I supposed to do? The police won't take me seriously because there's no apparent damage. Things have escalated from vandalism and destruction of property to me waking up to find red scars, torn skin, peeling skin, and scratch marks all over my body. It's never severe enough to be life-threatening, because that would leave incriminating evidence behind. Instead, like with my belongings that they damaged slowly one by one, scratched up all my electronics, dumped my trash into luggage, keep dipping my clothes in acid so that it's forever wet, cut my shoes and brand new clothing, cut up everything they can get their hands on, left distinguishing stains on the clothes I was wearing while sleeping, etc. They want to torture and torment me psychologically. Now, at first glance, this user tells the story of a deranged stalker who breaks into their home and basically destroys all of their belongings. But commenters felt that something about the post just didn't make sense. One user commented, "Not gonna lie, OP, your recounting of events strains rationality. Your stalker trashes stuff in your house within minutes of you leaving a room? What did you mean by they contaminated everything from your food to your bed sheets? Why did the police, in the face of all this extensive evidence, refuse to take you seriously? Do you know who your stalker is? Have you seen this stalker? The person, in the flesh? You refer to your stalker as they, not he or she, which suggests you don't know their gender. You give nothing of the physical description of this person, no comment on their identity at all. Yet like a shadow, they manage to follow you everywhere you go, all day long, picking any lock, only seeming to gain entry without a trace, avoiding public surveillance, and they stick around inside wherever you stay just wanting to trash your shit or steal key cards as soon as you leave to use the washroom. They write all over your documents, they dip your clothes in acid, they cut up your shoes, they claw at your skin while you sleep at night. I think the identity of your stalker lies within yourself. I strongly advise you seek mental health counseling. Many other users felt the same, advising the OP to seek professional help in case the OP is having a psychological event. As stated, no info was given on how the OP knows their stalker, no physical description, and despite the OP's claims, the police were unable to find any evidence of any damage. So it could be possible that the OP is experiencing hallucinations, thinking that somebody has broken into their home, when in reality, they could be experiencing some sort of psychosis. User Legitimate Powder commented on the post with a possible answer: carbon monoxide poisoning? And another user would reply to this comment: ever since that one thread, I always think of this as a possibility. It's funny, I have a Ring alarm with a Z-Wave smoke / carbon monoxide detector attached, so if my smoke alarm goes off, they call and check, and then if I don't pick up, they would send someone. It happens occasionally if someone burns something in the oven or stuff like that. However, if it detects carbon monoxide in the air, the alarm company will actually call the fire department first, and then they'll call you and tell you to exit the house. The only other time they send for help without calling and confirming, or not receiving an answer with the password, is when you hit the panic button. We have a couple strategically placed around the house. Apparently with carbon monoxide poisoning, they know the homeowner might have their judgment impaired, and there really is no such thing as a false carbon monoxide alarm. So they want help to come right away and don't let you decide, since you might be suffering from the carbon monoxide poisoning that sometimes makes you think and do irrational things. The thread this user is referring to is from a popular Reddit post on the r/legal advice sub, in which a Redditor describes the weird appearances of post-it notes all over their apartment. Thinking that their landlord was stalking them, the user took to Reddit for advice. After some time, commenters alerted the OP that this behavior was similar to that of carbon monoxide poisoning, and as it would turn out, the OP of this thread would later confirm that he in fact was hallucinating as a result of carbon monoxide poisoning. So which was it? Was it a crazy stalker? Mental illness? Or is this all just the result of carbon monoxide poisoning? This was the one and only post uploaded by Lost Butterfly, and it was over 3 years ago, so we'll never know. We can only hope that they found help, no matter what the situation was. Let me know which one of these posts you found the most unsettling. And if you have anything you want me to dive into, leave it in the comments. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching. The first post we're going to take a look at was posted on April 9th of 2023, where the user Bewildered Ocelot went onto the RBI subreddit and posted the following. Went out for a few drinks and came back with all my accounts emptied. I really just cannot piece together how this has happened. I was in my hometown on a casual night out with friends, and after we parted ways, I have a period of absolutely no memory, and all of my bank accounts have all had money taken out. There are 2 ATM withdrawals from 2 accounts at about 4 a.m., and these were the 2 accounts I had bank cards on my person for. So I initially thought perhaps I had had a card clone whilst I was out, but I was only using one of them, so it makes no sense how they could have both been copied and used successfully. It gets a lot worse, however. After taking the max possible out via ATM, there's a further $2,000 spent in a currency exchange, and another $1,500 in what shows in my banking app as a restaurant, though not somewhere I can find any information on. To use my cards in the machines, they'd need my PIN. They could have seen me entering this whilst I was out, but I'm completely at a loss as how they could get the PIN from both cards when I was only using one. Worse yet, there was a transfer made from a completely separate bank account of mine into a current account that I had a card for. This can only have been made via the app on my phone, which is authorized using my fingerprint. So the crooks topped up the account they had cards for with more of my money, which they then stole. So there's 3 separate accounts they've been able to access somehow. And I've also been getting texts and emails about loan applications made in my name. This means they've had access to my phone, my bank accounts, and my email. But how could they have gotten all this? I blocked all my accounts. Not that there's anything left to take from them. And frankly, the bank aren't being very helpful. The police were a little more interested and have taken a full statement and pledged to look at the CCTV from the various places cash had been taken out and spent. However, I'm still concerned this isn't over, because I can't see any way they could do this without my phone being compromised. I haven't worked out how this has happened. Fairly sure I must have been spiked to have the 6 to 8 hour blackout window, but does that mean they just used my finger whilst I was passed out to keep unlocking my phone and authorize the transactions they've made? Because I've still got my phone and my cards, so why wouldn't they have just kept these, or disposed of them? In a further twist of curiosity, both my main banking apps on my phone had disappeared from the folder they sit in. The apps were still on my phone, but they had been moved, either in a failed attempt to uninstall them, or it could be that these aren't the legit apps, and are some kind of clones that were installed in place of the originals. So can anyone piece together any suggestions as to how this could have all carried out? Is it possible there's some kind of phone cloning going on? Or is it more likely that I've been drugged, and they've managed to get everything they need from my phone whilst I was out? I realize how vulnerable it is having all your banking on your phone, and all this access with your fingerprint. If it had needed a PIN or unlock pattern, surely there's no way they could have got in. Obviously, I feel completely awful for letting myself get scammed so badly, and I'm not holding out any hope that there is any way of getting any of my money back, which was literally everything I own. I just really wish I could get a better understanding of how this could have happened to me. Is this a targeted attack, or just opportunistic and I've just been very unlucky? What could the mystery £1,500 payment be for? If anyone recognizes any of this weird stuff here, please do let me know, as even the police seem a bit baffled at the fact that I had 3 separate accounts professionally emptied, and yet still have my bank cards and phone. This user's experience was quite unsettling, and user One Amazing Day would reply to the OP with, "You didn't let someone scam you. You were assaulted and robbed, and I'm horrified for you. This is a sickening crime on your person. I understand the need to lock down your assets first, but also take the time, when you can, to face the trauma of this. It'll sneak up on you if you don't. Also see a doctor if you haven't already. Someone knocked you out for 6 to 8 hours. Jesus, that is deadly serious. Get some blood work done, and getting a physical exam is important for your peace of mind." The OP replied back with, "Thank you. It has been difficult to process because I'm so clueless as to what could have happened, and half of me thinks I might have just been very stupid, and this is my fault, whilst the other half is just utterly confused. It's part of the reason I started this thread, because I don't understand what happened." Other users, however, were not so kind with their replies. User Bunny Lebowski cited some of the OP's past comments on various subs, 5 months prior to this original post. "This isn't just a person out at the pub having a few pints. This is a drug addict who does this regularly. I used to do this. I'd come home and have loads of messages about the test drive I'd booked or a country club I'd agreed to go tour. And I was always thinking, who the fuck did this guy think he is about benzo blackout me? I actually banged a load of codeine and tramadol on Friday, and I don't remember Saturday at all. The OP claimed that their drug use had nothing to do with the events of that night. Whether or not this is true is uncertain, but a user by the name of Tony Borda would provide a possible explanation for what happened to the OP. If it makes you feel somewhat better, this is textbook scopolamine. It is a drug that is commonly used in Colombia. The drug is processed from a tree called borrachero. The fucking tree grows in the wild. This tree can be found in many places in Colombia and Venezuela. Once processed into the drug, it's like fucking magic. By the touch or smell, you fall into a spell, not just roofied. It's way worse. You will be awake and you'll listen to it and follow every single order they give you. The best part? As you experienced it, the next day you don't remember a thing. People who have fallen victim to this drug oftentimes had more than just emptied their bank accounts. It's not unheard of whole apartments being robbed. It is a very dangerous drug. I don't know exact numbers, but it's said that the dose is just in the milligrams. Too much can kill the victim. The world is somewhat lucky that this drug is not exported as cocaine is. For Colombians, it's nothing new. The stories go way back to the 80s and 90s, and it's still commonplace to this day. This could explain the reason the OP has no memories of any of the transactions, as well as how the thieves could have accessed so much of the OP's information. Maybe the OP was under the spell of this mind-controlling drug, and willingly gave the thieves all of their money. The OP would provide a small update 3 days after they originally posted. For those of you interested, I finally spoke to the police again after days of them avoiding me. They said that they've been trying to get the CCTV from the bar, and the place's transactions have been made, but I'm a bit disappointed that 5 days later and they still haven't actually looked at anything. The Challenger Bank have made zero progress, and just keep saying they're escalating, whatever that actually means. I've made a few inquiries myself at places my money had been spent, but struggling to get a hold of anyone who will help. It's all very deflating, but I'll keep at it. In a bit of good news, however, the second bank did refund me, and they've actually been really nice. That money does at least mean I can meet my rent this month, so I feel slightly less immediately stressed about finances. I also managed to speak to someone at one of the credit reference agencies too, who confirmed the loan applications made in my name, none of which appear to have been successful so far, thankfully. He also put a password on my credit file, so that future credit applications will need to know the password. That's something I didn't know you could do, and to be honest wasn't something I'd ever previously thought you'd even need to do. Finally, I managed to order a cheap drug test kit using the small balance in my PayPal account, and use that on the urine sample I saved. I don't imagine anyone that will take that seriously, but if it does pick anything up, that will at least provide me with a bit of indication. It'll be nice to get rid of the pot of piss in my fridge too. Personally, I think it's possible that the OP was drugged unknowingly and taken advantage of in their altered state. But with this post being so recent, this is where the trail ends for now. This could have been a bender given the OP's drug history, but if they were drugged by a drug that they were unfamiliar with, they would have little to no tolerance, and the OP continues to state that this was not a bender. Let me know what you think happened down in the comments, and I'll link the post in the description so you can check for future updates. We're now going to look into the post history of a certain disturbed individual. This user goes by the name of Lady Iris and created their profile on August 8th of 2015. Their last post was posted on January 5th of 2016, but in their short time on Reddit, Lady Iris posted a series of many unsettling and dark posts. Their first post was uploaded onto the r/aw sub on August 25th, a few weeks after she first created her account. Adorable half blue heeler, half Australian shepherd puppies. Her next post was the next day, on the Ask Reddit sub, and it remained pretty tame. But this is where the user's account does a complete 180 from the original post on the r/aw sub. 3 days after Lady Iris started posting, she went on to the morbid questions sub and said the following. If you forced someone to swallow Drano, what would happen to their insides? Obviously it would most likely kill them, but I'm curious to hear the details on how it would actually corrode their insides and what it would feel like. What followed next would be a series of dark posts on the same sub. What are the best ways to cause extreme harm to people that won't instantly cause their death? How long does it take for a person's nerves to be destroyed when they are burned alive? How long are you likely to feel the pain of burning? If you could kill any one person in existence with absolutely no repercussions, who would it be, and how would you kill them? Would you make it slow and painful, or a quick death? The argument could be made that this user is a mortician in training, or some other form of profession that often deals with death, but the nature of the questions feels more sinister, and these next posts are pretty disturbing. Why don't we use the flesh and meat of people that die prematurely? What do you do when you feel like killing someone? This post, despite having only a single upvote, sparked a series of comments in which one user stated, "Look at it another way. If you do kill someone, you will be treated as a criminal who needs to be punished. You will be in legal trouble and will wind up being committed to prison for a very long time. If you ask for help and have not hurt anyone, you will be treated as a patient who needs help. You may wind up committed to a mental health facility on a relatively short-term basis, but the goal of that will be to return you to health and society as quickly as possible." The OP would reply back to this comment with, "I just don't know what they could do for me at a mental hospital other than dose me up with lots of medication. I've had thoughts like these for years and years." With this comment right here, Lady Iris admits that she thinks about taking someone else's life, and in another comment she would say, "The thoughts themselves aren't uncomfortable though. It's a sadistic thing for me. I enjoy the thoughts, and they bring me great pleasure, but it is frustrating not being able to indulge in them. If I knew I could get away with it, I'd take the risk. But I am too careless of a person, and I know I would be caught. I have a good life, and I don't want to spend it in jail." The thought of jail seemingly being the only thing holding Lady Iris back from committing a gruesome crime. In further comments, she also admits that she gets sexually aroused when she has these thoughts and fantasies. Some of her last activity was replies on the post on an Ask Reddit sub titled, "What location would you choose if you were going to commit a mass shooting?" Lady Iris seemed to be replying to a person who has now deleted their comments, but her replies went like this. "By reading, watching, and writing things related to it, I did kill a cat, but it's not something I plan to really do again. I've done some consensual S&M type stuff, but the consent really takes away a lot of the fun." In her next series of comments on this thread, Lady Iris would describe in vivid detail how she would torture her victim and how much she would enjoy it. This was the last form of activity on Lady Iris's account, and I couldn't find any information that could give me a hint as to who this person really was, besides a list of names she posted onto the r/namenerds sub, where she stated that her own name was included, but did not specify which it was. This user clearly needed to seek mental help, and with her last post being over 7 years ago, we can only hope that she got the help she needed, and didn't end up in jail for taking someone else's life. Her post and comment history is extensive, and if you want to take a better look into it, there's a link to her profile in the description. This next post comes from Reddit user RedWantsBlue80, and was posted over 9 years ago. The post was uploaded onto the r/ghost subreddit, where users go to talk about their paranormal experiences. Typically, stories on this sub are just that, stories. But despite this post being very old, it managed to send chills down my spine. It starts like this. "I use this app called Sleep as Android to improve my sleep. One of the features is that it records your nighttime noises, snoring, sleep talk, cover ruffles, coughing, etc. I've been using the app since October 1st of 2013. I've never caught anything other than sounds created by me changing positions or coughing or something like that. On December 30th at 2:04 a.m., I caught something very weird. To set up, this night I was sleeping in my bed. My 3-year-old was with me that night as he was scared of the dark. It was just the two of us in the whole house. The next night I decided to go through and delete my recordings and saw this particular record. In it, you can hear some clicks that start to get louder over the course of the recording. Eventually you can hear me say, 'What are you doing?' And immediately after that is a deep voice that says, 'Nothing.' The clicks become very loud at that point, and at the very end of the recording, you hear the same voice say, 'That's them.' I'm pretty creeped out by this. I don't remember being awake that night. The only plausible explanation is that I answered my own sleep talking, but the voice doesn't even sound like me or something I could emulate. It definitely doesn't sound like a voice my preschooler could emulate either. I have no idea what the clicks could be. I keep a fan going at night for white noise, but the clicks sound like they're coming from right near my phone. I want to say that I've picked up the clicks a few times from recording before, but deleted them thinking it was nothing. This is the first time I've ever heard anything though. I would love some debunking here. I like creepy stuff, but certainly not in my own home." The OP also provided a recording of the original audio.
What are you doing? Okay.
here is the same audio cleaned up by a Reddit user.
What are you doing? Okay. Okay.
I've also cleaned up the audio myself using my own plugins. So here's my version.
What are you doing? Okay. Okay.
One user stated that they believed the clicking noise could be the sounds of somebody rummaging through the OP's things in a home invasion, which could be very possible. It does sound like somebody's saying "what are you doing" in the recordings, so that could be the intruders talking to each other. Another theory that began circulating was that some paranormal activity could be going on inside the OP's home. In a reply to the user Blackwater Project, who stated it sounded like a man's voice, the OP would say this. That's what I thought too, but I didn't want to say too much at first. I had someone else listen to it, and they said that the rustling at the beginning sounds like somebody is pulling the covers off of me. But to be fair, the rustling noise could have been me turning over, or my preschooler turning over. I feel like I would have been woken up if the covers were pulled off. It's cold in my house. As for the clicking noises, on my bedside table, I have my iPad, a book, my glasses, a bottled water, and my lamp. That's it. Nothing else in the vicinity, aside from my closet which is nearby. I'm sure I would have remembered the lamp being turned on and off, so I don't think it was that. There have been a few things that have happened that I can definitely explain away, and there are legitimate reasons for. For instance, I have a big dog, and always let him out at night. The last thing I do before bed. I always remember to lock the doors after he comes in. There have been several instances where I wake up in the morning to find the front door unlocked. The last time it happened was Christmas morning. I remember because I was shocked to find out I had forgotten because of all the gifts I had out under the tree. Also, the living room light has a tendency to flicker a lot. I think this is an electric issue though, because when I turn the knob and tap the wall, it will stay on. It's one of those dimmer lights. No other light in the house does this. Also, my big dog used to love sleeping on my bed, but the last few months he has either gone downstairs or slept in my bedroom doorway. I think it's because my child sleeps in my bed though, so I don't really think that's something. It's just something I noticed. This morning, I noticed that the little white noise machine I used for my son when he was an infant was sitting out in the hall, and it was switched on. The green light was glowing. Definitely would have noticed that light being on when all the lights were off last night, but it had a tendency to flicker on and off too. If it was on, it would turn off and on randomly. Also, the day after the recording, my son asked me where Ho was. When I asked him who that was, he said the black guy with no face. He could have been referring to Santa though, and forgot his name. He's never mentioned Ho before this. Plus my son says some odd things sometimes, as preschoolers often do, and he has asked me a few times where Santa is. Also a point to make. My ex knows somebody in the Ohio Paranormal Society, and had me send this clip to her. Originally I thought the voice at the very end said Jenny, but after listening, the woman said that it's saying, that's them. In a later edit, the OP references the messages they had with another Reddit user, who appeared to have some knowledge when it comes to audio. The person in the recording definitely isn't you talking to yourself, nor is it your son. Your voice's pitch in the question, "What are you doing?" is around 265 Hz, C4 in musical notes, when the answer's voice seems to be around 95 Hz, F2. That is a relatively low voice even for a man. Unfortunately, the recording seems to have clipped a lot of the lower frequencies, which makes it seem like the man's voice is around 190 Hz. But there is a little hint of 90 Hz tone left, and judging by the upper frequencies and some of the test recordings of my own voice, it definitely seems and sounds like a man to me. If I had a video of you talking normally and then trying to make a really low voice, I could definitely tell if my theory is true. The OP also linked an analysis done by a user that was aimed at proving whether or not these two voices were the OP or potentially someone else. The user's research was based on the fact that the unknown voice had a significantly lower pitch than the woman's voice. By examining the original and enhanced versions of the recording, the user observed that the last comment from the unknown voice was pitched around 190 Hz, a relatively low frequency for a woman. However, it could still be possible for a woman to produce such a pitch, especially when her vocal cords are relaxed from sleep. The woman provided test recordings of her and her son's voices, and the lowest pitch was still higher than the unknown voice. The Reddit user discovered a faint 90 Hz pitch in the tone F2, which could be the real pitch of the unknown voice. Since no ordinary woman can produce an F2 note, and the OP's lowest note was an E3, the user concluded that the unknown voice could not be the woman speaking to herself. He would not state whether or not he believed that there was a second man there, if he believed it was the son, or comment on the source of the clicking noises. It is safe to assume that a 3-year-old could not produce a pitch that low. This user only aimed to prove that the voices were not the OPs, and provided the evidence to support this theory. We'd never get our answer, however, as the user posted in a final edit on April 21st of 2015 that they had moved out of the house and would not be updating any further, leaving us to speculate whether this was a home invasion, sleep talking, or something paranormal. Our last story was uploaded on May 11th of 2012, where a now deleted user tells us the story about his visit to a local bridge. This is going to be short, but the memory sprung into my mind a couple days back, and I thought it would be worth sharing. I live in North Wales, UK. For anyone who's had the pleasure of visiting, it's a truly beautiful place to live, though for an adolescent boy, it is certainly lacking in things to do. As a result, my friends and I would often find ourselves mindlessly exploring areas of countryside and coastline. Despite it being quite sparsely populated, in comparison to the closest cities, there is a dual carriageway running right along the coast from Wales into England. Also, train tracks run alongside this road for most of it, of course, occasionally passing overhead via a small cement bridge. Anyway, there was one night a few years ago when about 4 of us randomly decided to try and go explore the inside of one of these bridges, as one of the group had observed the manhole cover nearby which he believed to be an entrance. On closer inspection, we discovered that several tools would be required in order to gain entry. We returned with the necessary equipment and proceeded to unbolt the cover. This had to be done stealthily, as the train track was right beside us. Not close enough to be any danger, but definitely a sufficiently small distance to cause panic for any train driver. And panic usually means police. It wasn't long before we had removed the heavy steel disc, and had started descending the ladder down into the structure. Once we had all safely reached the bottom, we decided to progress to the other side. At this point, we were totally confined into the narrow space that leads into the main area. If you're confused as to what the hell this bridge is supposed to be, you probably should be, because it was rather peculiar. I mean, I would have never known there was even an inside, had we not found the manhole. So, as we squeeze and crouch, and at one point scrape along our bellies, to the other side of the structure, there's a growing sense of claustrophobia between us. The distance from one end to the other is surprisingly long, but by the halfway point, you can look down through narrow gaps onto the motorway below. This was actually pretty cool, which helped keep us calm in a strange way. At this point, apart from the mild discomfort and confinement, we're still just a group of guys on an adventure. This was about to change dramatically. No more than a few meters beyond halfway, one of us claimed they could see some object in the distance at the far end. Slightly hesitantly, we agreed to investigate. Bad move. I reached the end first, and let me tell you, I have never felt the same sense of dread before or since. In front of me was a single fold-away chair, positioned facing a wall. On the wall was a partially torn piece of a newspaper or magazine, showing a fully naked lady in an erotic position. The reason I don't just refer to it as porn is because something was different about it. I can't put my finger on it, but it seemed more sinister than sexy, if that makes any sense. More disturbingly, the eyes of the woman on display had been cut from the page, removed with precision, not just hastily ripped off. The scene that lay before us had rendered us completely speechless, and an overpowering sense of panic could be felt collectively. That was when we found the condom. The horrendous, gut-wrenching, blood-drenched condom. Needless to say, we got the fuck out of there as fast as humanly possible, smashing our knees and shins against the sharp cement edges that lined the path to the ladder by which we had entered. Of course, we were all praying to God that the manhole hadn't been resealed, as it was impossible to tell until you reached the ladder itself. Thankfully, the exit route was clear, and we promptly dashed as far away as our legs could carry us. I'm sure this ending comes as a disappointment to some of you reading this, as we never bumped into the twisted individual who sits in that chair. But I must stress how radically out of the norm this is given where I live. The reason I mentioned the population earlier was with purpose. There's easily enough people here to escape the realms of crazy country folk, yet nowhere near enough people to have someone clearly lose grip of society without somebody taking notice. For example, there was literally only one homeless man, who everyone in the area knew and grew fond of, eventually resulting in a mass gathering at his funeral when he passed away. Sometimes I think, though not recently, as I had more or less forgotten about that night entirely, about the person who climbs down into that bridge and navigates through the darkness to sit facing a wall and do God knows what that ends up with a condom full of blood. You honestly couldn't envision a more surreal situation. It has just come to my realization that what we unearthed that night has not been once uttered to another soul. As a naive teenager, it was the type of thing you wanted to forget. But thinking about it, we probably should have let the police, or at least someone, know what was down there, because it wasn't the doings of a healthy-minded individual. So there you have it. Apologies for the length. I got carried away as this is my first Let's Not Meet post, and I wanted to make the reading experience as similar to reality as I could. Now I'm a few years older, and hopefully a bit braver. I'm considering going down there again, accompanied of course, to see what fucked up shit might be waiting. This could well happen in the next couple days, and rest assured I will 100% post an update as I currently have no job, so time is plentiful. The OP would revisit the bridge sometime later, and provide pictures of this experience in a second post. However, it seems as though their friends did not want to venture too deep into the bridge. As promised, here are photos from the return visit. We went early evening, so there was still plenty of light, and as a result I have decided to use a simple filter on most of the outdoor shots, simply to reduce the light and give it the eeriness it deserves. Unfortunately, I hadn't adequately conveyed my plans to those accompanying me, and they had presumed I had just wanted to check out the small area before the entrance to the passageways, as they had been there before. When I expressed my wishes to navigate through the bridge, they instantly noped the fuck out of there. As you can imagine, I was massively disappointed. I hope to go back soon with a different bunch of guys, but I can't promise when. The amount of traction that this post was getting prompted the OP to visit the bridge one last time, in which he and a friend ventured much deeper inside than they had ever before, providing even more pictures this time, showing us images of a rope, a knife, crime scene tape, and human waste. Early yesterday evening, a friend and I decided to embark on the revisit to this awful place, in the hope of finding some remnants of the twisted scene that had been stumbled upon several years ago. We were not disappointed. If anything, it was even worse than I had imagined. Aside from what you will see in the photos, the general environment within the bridge structure is practically uninhabitable, and stomach-turning to say the least. The amount of dust in the passageways is quite unbearable, but that is nothing compared to the constant stench that must be endured. Also, the heat didn't help the situation either. I won't ramble on, but I must express how vulnerable you feel navigating through these tunnels. Even with two of us, both carrying appropriate weaponry, the sense of evil was overpowering. The tension is amplified tenfold by the fact that we had encountered someone or something. The layout of the structure and the multiple tight squeezes mean a safe, speedy exit is nigh on impossible. It truly is a hellhole. While this could have all just been the shelter of a homeless person, the series of items inside paint the picture that something much darker could be going on beneath this bridge. Maybe it was some disturbed individual. Maybe it was a homeless person. Or maybe this was the lair of a serial killer. No further updates would be provided by the OP, and as of the time of this recording, the mystery remains unsolved. That concludes our Reddit deep dive. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on the next one. Let me know what you think about these posts in the comments, and as always, thanks for watching. The first post I found was one that was originally uploaded on April 23rd of 2021. User Crispito Day went onto the Let's Not Meet subreddit and posted the following. I think there's someone living in my shed. Title says it all, but also doesn't say anything. Lately I've been noticing something off about home. Like there's something else there with me, my wife, and our 2 dogs. But I have not been able to put my finger on it until today. For some context, I live in a duplex. We share the property with another guy in his mid-20s. He has his house, and we have ours, but we share a laundry room that leads to our respective backyards that are separated by a fence. This all started around 2 months ago, when the guy sent me a text. Hey man, just a heads up, someone stole my bike out of the sunroom. This is extra creepy, because to get to our sun/laundry room, you would need to hop the brick fence surrounded by shrubby trees, and then hurl the bike over. Unless the thief had the most massive pair of balls ever, and walked it through one of our front doors when we weren't home. Either way, I didn't feel right, and made more of an effort to keep the door locked. Fast forward to a couple weeks ago, I let my dogs into the backyard, and one of them starts sniffing at the shed. No big deal. The lizards are coming out with it heating up. They probably just chased one under the door. I finally got them to come in but didn't give it much thought. I hardly ever go into that shed. Nothing wrong with it. It's just kind of out of the way, and I'm not really a hang out in the shed type of guy. so we generally use it for storage. Suitcases, furniture that doesn't fit / match the house, camping stuff, the boring suburban shit. We probably enter it maybe 3 times a year. After the 18th day in a row of my dogs being curious about the shed, I decided to have a little look-see, to see if maybe there was a Komodo dragon or something in there, since they wouldn't let this thing go. Nope, no Komodo. But what I did find literally made me piss myself just a little bit. Just a few drops. Inside the shed was the bike that my neighbor had stolen from them a little while back. My first thought was, oh fuck, my wife's a klepto, but I quickly ruled that out. She doesn't even like the bike. Then I was briefly worried that my neighbor thought I was the thief. I mean, it is in my shed. I don't know how to explain that if he found out. Plus, I wanted to give him his bike back. I kept looking around and found one of our sleeping bags unraveled but balled up behind a box. Inside of it was a sack of what looked to be around $20 in change and singles. There was also a bag for garbage and had lots of food wrappers inside. Eventually, my brain accepted what it was ultimately denying at first and put 2 and 2 together. Someone, I don't know who, is living in my shed. Or at least was. Maybe my dog spooked them off. Or maybe they sleep there every night and leave during the day. If they weren't coming back, why would they leave their change? I left everything how I found it, and thinking about what I should do next. Whoever did it must have gotten in through the spare set of keys I keep hidden in my backyard. I locked up and brought them inside with me tonight. Hopefully whoever it is gets the message and moves on. I'm going to install cameras tomorrow. I'll keep you guys updated if anything more happens. Please hope for the best and that this person isn't a lunatic. Many Redditors expressed their concerns in the comments. First of all, tell that to your wife and your neighbor. They have to know, at least for their own safety. The cameras are a good idea. Change all your locks and don't let keys anywhere. Take photos of what you find and check all the rooms when you come / leave home and when you go to sleep. They are informed and as equally creeped. I can't even imagine how you could feel right now. Ask the police about it. Maybe it happened to someone else too in your neighborhood / city. I made a non-emergency report and they told me that they would have some extra officers keeping an eye on the area tonight. We, my neighbor and I, are both going to change our locks and are sleeping with baseball bats next to our beds. Any news? There are some updates, but I want to let a couple things play out before I post a follow-up, but I will be soon. The OP would go on to provide an update, not long after the original post. Alright guys, I got some good news and I've got some bad news. The bad news is that for 3 nights now, my cameras have not picked up anything, so no creepy footage for you guys. The good news is for me, no footage. But the story doesn't end there. A few people who read my post suggested I contact some local homeless shelters. After all, I didn't want to get the police involved and ruin someone's life potentially, and this very well could have just been a person who hit rock bottom and just needed any kind of shelter. So I called around the past few days and explained this story to some people who knew the homeless population. The first few conversations went something like this. Doesn't sound like someone I know of, but let me hook you up with. After about the 5th or 6th time of telling me to hit someone up who may know, I got a bite. Susan has been working with the homeless community in my city for around 3 decades. She listened to what I had to say with eagerness, and I could tell she had a light bulb go off almost right away. The bag of food wrappers you found, were they a bunch of party mix like little bite muffins? This was it. She was dead spot on. There were probably like 10 in there. You probably got nothing to worry about. That's Old Man Dan. Susan proceeded to tell me a brief version of Old Man Dan's life. Old Man Dan is a supposed Vietnam veteran who, like many of his peers, fell on hard times. She said that he has probably lived more of his life as a homeless person than he probably has functioning within society. They feel like he suffers from multiple mental health issues, such as PTSD and multiple personality, but has never been a concern for violent outbursts. He has mostly kept his head low and just tried to hang out. He also has a habit of shoplifting boxes at a time of party mix little bites from the grocery store. I guess they're his favorite. But Old Man Dan was infamous for one thing, setting up little bases around town. Some they said, he's gone years undetected. Other times he's caught in a day. There are usually little bites wrappers found in these places. That's what usually gives his identity away. They said that he's really good about not going back to where he's not welcome. He's just trying not to draw attention. Some of his local hideouts include under the bleachers at a high school, abandoned swimming pools. He had a tent on a golf course, but his most common are a plethora of sheds and guest houses he can find his way into. So now that I knew my wife's life, my precious baby pups, my neighbors, and my life were not an immediate threat, I took a moment to ponder on my next move. I asked if Susan would come by and grab his stuff and track him down. She says she knew his usual spots. I tossed his trash, but gave her the sack of cash and coins, with a little extra from my coin jar. I also let her give him my sleeping bag. My neighbor kept his bike. Anyways, hopefully this is the end of this saga. I'm moving this summer anyways, so not really anything to worry about long term. But although I knew his intentions weren't malicious, part of me still feels violated that this was even happening. How many nights did he sleep out there without me knowing? I shudder at the thought. So old man Dan, if I see you on the street, I'll throw you a few bucks in a water, but let's not meet in my shed. I wasn't able to find any further updates on old man Dan or the shed after this, so it's likely that he never went back after he realized that the homeowners had discovered his presence and were uncomfortable. Hopefully it was old man Dan and not somebody else who had potentially sinister intentions, giving us a somewhat happy ending to the mystery of the person who was living inside Crispito Day's shed. Another Let's Not Meet story to look into is that of the window creeper. User Dr. Fluffnugget posted about their encounter with this disturbed individual on August 7th of 2014. Someone has been coming up to my window and knocking at it late at night when I'm alone. I live by myself, and despite calling the cops 4 separate times, I have no idea who would do this to me. The police have put up a camera, so I'm hoping that I catch them soon. They seem to watch me through the window without interacting, despite my blinds being closed. The first time it happened, I came home after a long night at work, and 10 minutes later, I actually saw a dark figure at my window stand there motionless for 5 minutes while I was frozen and unable to move. The next time was pretty similar, except I was up late doing work after getting home at a weird hour. In both cases, my blinds had been partially open earlier from before I left for work. I couldn't identify them due to the lighting, but it scared me shitless, and I got the police involved. I now keep my blinds shut all the time. There has been a clear pattern in terms of days of the week, timing, and the pattern of interaction. It only seems to happen late at night when I'm alone, and when my lights are on, which makes it even worse. Additionally, in June, I had a flashlight shown through my window for an extended amount of time. Last week, the knocking resumed. Tonight, I just heard all these weird rustling sounds, and sounds that I've never heard pretty close to my window. It also sounded like someone touched my window, although they didn't knock. I live in a quiet complex in a quiet area, so typically, there's no sounds besides the car driving by. It might be that they found my camera and tried to tamper with it. The police came 20 minutes after, and we'll be checking the camera tomorrow. I'm just scared and upset that this asshole is interfering with my life. The police and my landlord are already aware of this, and I don't believe I can move. Anyone else dealt with a prowler and have any advice? It's stories like these that scare me the most. Thinking about somebody watching you outside your window while you're in the comfort of your own home is terrifying. Redditors would provide the OP with advice, and user Olivia the Spider would reply into the post with, "It's good that you found a pattern in what he does. I would recommend keeping a log of sorts. It could be hugely important. It's also good to get the cops involved. However, sometimes they end up not being able to do all that much. If you're feeling brave, you could have another person stay over with you and have a sort of stakeout and try to take pictures yourself or record it. Good luck." The OP would reply with, "Thanks. It's all documented with the police and they're taking it seriously. I'm hoping that they'll commit to sitting outside my window in the near future. My boyfriend stays over a decent amount, but it's never happened when he's been over here. It just freaks me out so much because it only happens when the person knows I'm home and alone. The police suspect it's someone who lives in the same area, as do I since it's a regular thing, and they send me know my schedule. This is the worst night for this to happen on, as I have a huge milestone event in the morning I need to pass. I'll definitely think about your idea. Due to the arrangement of the apartment, it's difficult since it only happens when the lights are on, which would make a photo impossible due to the glare/lighting differential. However, a friend has offered to stake out my apartment in her car so she can help get a visual identity on the person. I'm just hoping this camera has captured their face tonight. For a while, I suspected my former neighbor, who would text me repeatedly at weird hours and leave me creepy rambling notes about our relationship when we had spoken less than 5 times. According to my landlord though, he's moved out of state and the police have formally warned him that he will be arrested for felony stalking charges if he interacts with me in any capacity. According to the police, he seemed scared shitless and denied it vehemently, although he was in his apartment at the time of the second incident. The flashlight incident occurred shortly after I verified with my landlord that he had moved out of state, which makes me question if it was ever him. As of last week, the knocking has resumed in the same manner, and now tonight. This is the most terrifying thing I've ever gone through, and I have no idea who is doing this to me. It seems the OP did have a potential suspect in mind, but with the landlord saying that they moved out of state and seeming fairly certain that they're gone, the OP was ultimately left with no idea of who the creep could be. And for a few years, we wouldn't get a clear update on what eventually happened, until May 25th of 2020, when Dr. Fluffnugget went on to the Let's Not Meet sub with the following update. I am the OP of this post and this update. It's been a while, and I figured I'd update you all on what happened after getting my window creeper arrested. The person behind the act was arrested and confessed immediately to the police after being identified publicly. It was nobody I knew, but someone who was illegally living in my apartment complex. Not knowing the person behind the certain crimes makes it almost impossible to press for stalking charges in some places, as stalking laws are typically geared to people who know each other. But there may be other applicable laws. After this came out, the person was immediately evicted. The person didn't even know my name, yet did this for months. I don't know if I've ever been so angry. I was encouraged to see a therapist, which I couldn't afford at the time. Also, I threatened my landlord with a lawsuit if she didn't let me out of my lease immediately. It worked, and I was able to get my deposit back in full. Every drama court warns you that the wheels of justice are slow, and it took months for the case to progress. The prosecutor asked me several times if I wanted to drop the case or allow a plea deal. I said no. I wanted the person to have a record for this, in case they did this to anyone else somewhere else. They warned me that I might need to go to trial and look the person in the face while testifying. The police didn't think I would be able to take it, but I told them I would do it if I had to. The case proceeded through the early stages of the justice system months later. I was able to get free legal advice via a women's advocacy organization that connected me with a victim's rights lawyer who informed me how the case was likely to go. I also got the opinion of a second lawyer with experience at the prosecutor's office at a local free legal clinic. I searched for every resource I could to help me dig myself out of the financial hole that this move from this cursed situation got me into. My workplace ended up helping me with their emergency fund. I pressed for restitution for my moving expenses as well as my future therapy costs. I wrote a letter to the DA and the judge about the case and everything that happened to me, the money that I lost, and lastly, the trauma that this had left me with. The person pled guilty to the charge without me having to testify early in the legal process, after being warned that I would testify. I didn't get the charges I hoped for, but the detective who helped me through this told me that there wasn't sufficient proof, but they would nail the creep next time. The person was ordered to pay restitution for some of my bills, but some of my therapy is still not fully repaid. After a few years, I googled the person and found out that they were arrested for the same exact thing. The police had records of this person's attributes, and given their criminal conviction for a crime of this nature, they were one of the first ones questioned about their whereabouts. They confessed. I moved on with my life. Yes, I sleep well at night, finally. It's been a while, but I'm going to try to dig up the info of the detective who got the case to conviction, to thank them. If anyone is going through this, you are stronger than you know you are. You're also not alone. Not everyone may know how to help you, but there are many organizations that may be able to help you depending on your situation, including women's advocacy organizations, abuse organizations, and even your own school or workplace who might have an emergency fund. Don't be afraid to speak up. There are people who will help you. You need to find a good therapist eventually to deal with the trauma of what happened to you. If you're facing this, find a safe place first. If you're female, many women's advocacy groups offer a safe place for women who are dealing with domestic abuse or stalking for you to figure out your next move. Other options include staying with friends and finding other temp housing, as this can be a quick way to find a new place without fronting much money. Of course, document everything that's happening to you. It might not be immediate that the police take this seriously, but if you're persistent, they will see that you're telling the truth. And don't be afraid to press charges. You might be saving someone else's life. Justice sometimes happens, even in stalking cases. Creep, let's never meet. Unfortunately, the justice system seems to get complicated when it comes to criminal stalking. Due to the usual lack of proof in these situations, the perpetrators are often let back into society and unfortunately end up committing the same offenses. It's a good thing that the OP decided to proceed with the charges, because in many cases like this, the process can be long and tedious, forcing many of the victims to withdraw, either due to the trauma of the experience or lack of funds necessary to continue going to court. The fact that the OP didn't even know who this person was, and they stalked her for months is insane. The meticulous planning and waiting for the OP to be alone gives a sickening look into the deranged mind of this individual. In a comment under this update, the OP would give their final statement about the situation. I should be clear that it did not go to court, but I was prepared to testify at trial if it happened. Many people aren't as familiar with the criminal justice system as I am, but if you choose to press charges / go this route in my country, it will come to an impasse where the offender has to plead guilty or go to trial. There is a risk that victims will have to testify at the trial if their testimony is the basis of the case. I'm doing well. Appreciate the kind words here. Unfortunately, this is the very last thing we have to go off of for this case. Whether or not this creep is currently out there, stalking other people is unknown. Hopefully his run-ins with the law make him think twice before he decides he wants to stalk somebody else. But people like this seem to have a hard time taking no for an answer, and there's no way to check records, as we have no real names to go off of. If there is a silver lining, is that at least the OP has moved on from the situation, and will hopefully no longer have to deal with this individual ever again. These next posts are pretty extensive, but I'll do my best to lay them out for you. The earliest upload I could find was posted by user Cat Hair in My Eye on September 22nd of 2017 and was uploaded onto the Unsolved Mysteries subreddit. It went like this. 6 months ago, 16-year-old Michaela Chang went missing. Michaela lived on Vancouver Island, in Nanaimo, British Columbia. She was a small girl with piercings and dyed hair. She and her friends could often be found hanging around outside of Tim Hortons on Wallace Street. People close to Michaela say she was happy and friendly, and loved to sing. She lived with her grandmother Dolly in a mobile home park. Her parents struggled with addiction, and her father had been arrested for various crimes and drug offenses. Still, he maintains that he had a very close relationship with his daughter. He was most recently sentenced on May 16th of 2017, the day before Michaela was last seen. When Michaela went missing, she hadn't exactly been staying with her grandmother Dolly. On and off for 2 whole months, she would claim she was sleeping at a friend's place, but in reality, she was staying with a man named Stephen Michael Bacon. Michaela's friends said Stephen seemed nice, and they didn't think that it was a problem that she stayed with him. Supposedly, he would hang out with Michaela and them outside of Tim Hortons, buying them cigarettes and alcohol. He bought Michaela things, and even promised her a dog. Stephen is 53 years old. Stephen's longtime friend Vivian claims he loved Michaela like a daughter. She swears he wouldn't harm a hair on Michaela's head, even when he wrote Michaela a 3-page letter, calling her his baby bird, while expressing his desire to be her father. He actually asked Dolly and Michaela's mother if he could adopt her. Dolly was unnerved by their friendship and tried to involve the police, but there wasn't much they could do, as the age of consent in Canada is 16. Dolly warned her granddaughter not to hang around Stephen, but Michaela didn't believe he had bad intent. He told Michaela he cared for her deeply, as she reminded him of his own daughter, who tragically unalived herself years ago. Turns out, Stephen's actual daughter isn't dead. Allison Bacon says her father has been lying about her supposed death for a while, and that he used to call her his baby bird. While she hasn't actually seen him for 2 years, she worries that he might not be mentally stable. Reports state that in Ontario back in 1985, Stephen was charged with 23 counts, including armed robbery, forcible confinement, and breach of probation. One report claims that he was convicted of SA in 1992 and spent 4 years in prison as a result. 3 days had passed since Michaela had been heard from, so Dolly went to Tim Hortons. The teens there told her that Bacon had already gone to report Michaela missing himself. Dolly immediately went to the police station and had a confrontation with Bacon, during which she revealed that Michaela had been staying with him and not her friends for the past 2 months. Dolly, now furious, went on to make the missing persons report, while Bacon left the building. Based on all of this, Stephen Bacon became a person of interest. The police wanted to ask him questions, but they couldn't find him. Initially, it was suggested that Michaela and Stephen might have run away together. While police looked for the two, they searched Stephen's basement suite at 609 Bruce Avenue, where Michaela had been staying. 2 weeks later, on April 6th, they found Stephen, but to everyone's surprise, Michaela wasn't with him. Why did he disappear? Did he actually have something to hide? Or was he running from Michaela's father? They questioned him about Michaela, and apparently he had all the right answers. Meanwhile, the search for Michaela continued. Friends and family put up posters and held a vigil, hoping she'd come home soon. 2 months and 1 day after Michaela Chang disappeared, they found her body. The RCMP won't say where, or how, or anything. All anyone knows is that they are treating it as a homicide, and the public is not believed to be in danger. The house Stephen Bacon lived in, one of Michaela's last known whereabouts, has since been demolished to make way for a shopping mall. The OP also provided a timeline of the events leading up to Michaela's death. March 17th, Michaela is last seen on St. Patrick's Day, downtown Nanaimo. March 19th, Dolly receives her last text from Michaela. March 20th, Michaela's social media activity stops, very out of character. March 22nd, Dolly and Stephen Bacon report Michaela missing. March 25th, police believe Michaela may have run away with Stephen. April 6th, Stephen is located and questioned, but Michaela is not with him. March 18th, 1 year later, Michaela's body is found, and it's deemed a homicide. Stephen's relationship with Michaela was questionable, but there is no direct evidence that he harmed her in any way. Do you think he at least knows what happened to Michaela? Could her murder have anything to do with her father's lifestyle? This case isn't that old, but it does appear to have a lot of information. Do you think it's likely to be solved? Everything in this write-up can be found in the news sources below, but there's certainly a rabbit hole of speculation and gossip online, including some weird accusations towards the Hells Angels. Cat Hair in My Eye provided multiple articles to validate this story. Commenters on this post were in a frenzy, and some were even saying that Stephen would never get caught. After about 6 months, a user by the name Selkraps23 went onto the Let's Not Meet sub and gave their story about a friend who they believed was killed by a person named Mike. The post went like this. This is a story I've been aching to get off my chest, and I think this is somewhere I can post it under some anonymity. I'm new to Reddit, so please let me know if this is the wrong subreddit. Anyone who wants to read more about this can DM me for articles or proof, as this story is not over. To start, I'm a teenage female. I had my own apartment for the first time, having recently moved to a new city to study. I quickly made friends with a group of fun but somewhat troubled teenagers that spent their days loitering at a local coffee shop. One girl I met in particular is who this story is about. I instantly felt a strong sense of caring for her. She is sweet, bubbly, and the moment I met her remains one of my favorite and most clear memories of her. This girl tells me of a man, Mike, who is like a father to her. He wants to adopt her. Let's note, this girl doesn't have an ideal family. Her real father is in jail, and she has very low self-esteem, as he doesn't give her the care she deserves. I soon meet him, and right away I thought he was great. I was being so naive. He was a scary-looking biker, in his 50s, had some awesome tattoos, told stories of great experiences, travel, and seemed quite educated. I thought I was so mature, and didn't think it was odd that we quickly became good friends, as the girl previously mentioned felt safe with him, and we both cared for her. We would drive around, talk about everything. I went to him crying and he made me feel better within a few hours. When the boy I was dating cheated on and then dumped me, I felt powerful having a friend like him. His favorite subject was the girl. He had met her a couple years prior by chance at this coffee shop. She looked exactly like his eldest daughter had at her age. He told me that 2 years prior, his oldest daughter had unalived herself. The girl had filled the void. I felt for him and understood. A few months pass, and the girl is staying with him. She's soon to be the legal adoption age, when she can choose to be adopted by him, and he's getting more and more excited. Alongside her, I'm the person who is closest to him. We spend time talking on the phone, visiting. I sleep at his house, I hang out with the girl, and I'm teaching her how to drive. Mike was like a father to me in this new town. He watches out for me. He tells me I'm important to him like the girl is. He would do anything for me. Some of the things he does for me includes letting me leave a project car in his yard, buying parts for it and helping me work on it, and aggressively confronting a boy who took advantage of me while I was intoxicated. Sorry for the huge setup, but it needs to be understood that I trust and look up to Mike with everything I have. 6 months after meeting him, this girl turns the age to be adopted. I'm now staying in a nearby town, not seeing them as much, but I still visit on the weekends. I get a call and he's thrilled to tell me that she's excited to be adopted by him, and he wants to have a big party. I'm excited and congratulate him. The last time I saw the girl was a few days before this, and just as our first meeting is vivid in my memory, so is our last goodbye. A few days later, I hear she's been reported missing, and Mike is gone, ignoring my text and eventually deleting his social media. Everyone is in a panic. The girl is adored by everyone, and is as innocent as they come. This is the start of 2 months of major anxiety, and guilt, and hurt that Mike had left me. I thought that he was here for me. For some reason, I still don't think he would do anything to hurt her. He loved her and protected her. Until a couple weeks later on Facebook, I see a comment on one of the articles. The police are now searching for Mike, wanting to question him, although he's not a suspect. The girl commented, "I'm Mike's daughter. Can someone please get me in touch with the family immediately? He's dangerous. I don't believe she is safe if she's with him." What the fuck? I message her right away. I give her the girl's grandmother's number and ask what she means by he's dangerous. This story bears a striking resemblance to the Unsolved Mysteries post. The OP would continue with this. As we talk, I learn about a few things. He never had 3 daughters, only 2. This girl I'm talking to is the oldest. When she was a child, he abused her. And the girl who I care about so much is a spitting image of this real daughter when she was a teenager. They had a falling out about 2 years prior. I also learned that the girl certainly had not wanted to be adopted. She had thought this was too much. However, she was being groomed and enjoying the gifts. Someone who would give her whatever she wanted. A father figure, while hers was not around. I suddenly am thinking about all the red flags. How could I have been so stupid? He had talked about his time in the Angels. He had put a man in the hospital shortly before I met him, after a bar argument. He spent his days hanging around this coffee shop with teenagers. I have experiences with creepy and dangerous men of all ages. He had me totally fooled. I think of the times he told me he cared about me, as he did for her. The times he picked me up drunk from parties, drank at my house. I slept at his house. Never once did he do or say anything inappropriate. But he had always been overly protective. The police and news reporters are calling me almost daily, asking what I know about him, asking for all these details. I ignore the reporters, fearing that he'll see me on TV. He is eventually found, questioned, and released. Not a suspect. He disappeared again, and I never spoke with him. 2 months after this lovely girl goes missing, her body is found. It's deemed a homicide. This was 1 year ago. There are no leads and no other info released by police. I have not heard from Mike. There have been many crazy stories since then. Lots of speculation. I don't want to believe he did it, and he has not been arrested or made a suspect, but everyone thinks that he is very likely. He lied about so many things. I learned the truth from his real daughter, and can't possibly include it all here. I wonder where he is. I wonder if one day I'll be minding my business and he will appear. Something in me still doesn't believe he could hurt me. Something else wonders, could it have been my body found? But the worst part is the tremendous guilt I feel. I was with him all the time. I spent time with these two. Why didn't I intervene? I'm so sorry. So old man, let's not meet again. Although I do miss you. Talk about internal conflict. Despite the unsolved mysteries post stating that the man's name was Steven, Redditors were quickly to connect the patterns and conclude that the Mike from this story was in fact the same person from the original post, Stephen Michael Bacon, citing the articles about Michaela's death to prove it. It's likely that Stephen also went by Mike to some people, as it was his middle name, and 3 years after Michaela passed away, user Selkraps23 would go on to the Unsolved Mysteries sub to give one final update on the case. Huge update in the homicide case of my friend Michaela Chang. 2 years ago, user Cat Hair in My Eye posted a great write-up on the case of my dear friend, Michaela Chang. Shortly after she was found dead, I also wrote about my experiences involving Stephen Bacon on r/Let's Not Meet, which can be read here. I wanted to post an update and share today that news broke that Stephen has been charged with first-degree murder in the homicide of Michaela. Here's an article on it. After my friend was murdered, I became quite the true crime junkie, listening to many podcasts and browsing this subreddit, and often think about how many people go missing or are found dead without ever having any justice. So I'm thankful that after 3 years, Kayla will have justice. And although the years have been long, so many cases go cold/are resolved decades later if ever. I hope this update will renew some hope into the hearts of those out there that are still waiting for answers themselves. Looking into this case myself, I found that Stephen was arrested shortly after Michaela's death and was serving time in a maximum security prison on an unrelated charge. But when the police were finally able to directly tie him to Michaela's death, he was charged with first-degree murder.
Chilling details were revealed today in a BC courtroom at the sentencing of a man who killed a Nanaimo teenager in 2017. Jordan Armstrong reports on the revelations during the hearing into Stephen Michael Bacon, who pleaded guilty to the murder of 16-year-old Michaela Chang, and a warning, some of the details in this story are disturbing.
Michaela Chang's father has waited 6 years for justice.
We got what we wanted, 20 and 20.
His daughter's killer, Stephen Bacon, sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 20 years for the second-degree murder of 16-year-old Michaela.
We're just glad to get through this and finally find some sense of closure. You know, it's never going to be over for us.
BC Supreme Court Justice Robin Baird accepting a joint sentencing submission from Crown and defense, calling it an appalling, cowardly, and vicious crime. Court heard a then 53-year-old Bacon pushed Chang in his home, where she fell and struck her head. He then strangled her. DNA revealed Bacon had sexual intercourse with the teen the day she was killed.
We just want justice. She deserves it.
Chang met Bacon in the summer of 2016 at a local Tim Hortons. Court heard the two developed a father-daughter type relationship, with Bacon even considering adopting her. On St. Patrick's Day 2017, they argued, with Chang no longer wanting him to adopt her. After killing her, Bacon had a taxi driver help him dispose of her body. The pair took Chang in a cab to a rural area, where Bacon buried her in a shallow grave. More than 2 years later, Bacon confessed to police in New Brunswick after his arrest. He was charged with first-degree murder in 2020, but ended up pleading guilty to second-degree murder.
He did something that's unspeakable to a very young girl who deserved to live a very long and healthy life. And the fact that she's not here it's heartbreaking.
She would have been 22 on March 1st, so that's really hard because she was only 16.
Before Bacon left town 6 days after Chang's murder, court heard he reported her missing to Nanaimo RCMP and even pretended to be the teen, sending texts from her phone and posing on a chat group.
It's pretty hard. It makes my skin crawl to look at him. It really does. But, he took ownership, which was amazing.
Chang's father addressed Bacon, calling him
Steven did plead guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for 20 years. It's alleged that Steven pushed Michaela during an argument, and when she fell on her head, he put her on the couch and choked her with his bare hands in hopes of avoiding criminal ramifications. How this made any sense to Steven, I'll never know. Then took Michaela's lifeless body and buried it in the woods near Nanaimo Lakes Road on March 18th of 2017 at around 4 a.m. Various drugs were also found in Michaela's blood, and the lies about Steven's daughter were brought up in court as well. All this information was used as evidence to convict this sick individual. It seems as though the good picture people painted about him inside their heads was all a lie, and behind the loving and fatherly act was a dark and twisted man. If my math is correct, Steven will be eligible for parole in 2043, but by then he'll be nearly 80 years old, and there's no guarantee he'll even live long enough to see the parole hearing. While we can't bring Michaela back, we can't appreciate that justice for her was served, and that those close to her now have some form of closure. With that said, I'll end it here. Let me know what you think about these posts, and if there's anything you'd like me to look into, let me know. If you like content like this, make sure to subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching. The first sub I wanted to look at is the r/gangstalking sub. r/gangstalking is a subreddit that focuses on presenting information about predatory gangstalking and also exists as a community to organize as a group to spread awareness and education. Like in the description, Reddit users come here to share their unfortunate experiences with the gangstalking phenomenon. For those of you who are unaware, gangstalking or group stalking is a set of persecutory beliefs in which those affected believe they are being followed, stalked, and harassed by a large number of people. The term is associated with the target individual virtual community, formed by like-minded individuals who claim their lives are disrupted by being stalked by organized groups intent on causing them harm, at least according to Wikipedia. In this sub, the rules go as follows. No trolling, spamming, or name-calling. Keep all submissions and comments on topic. Do not accuse mental illness. Do not give specific medical advice to strangers. No witch hunting or sharing others' personal information. Follow Reddit. Do not call any poster or mod a perp or disinfo agent. Please add a description to any video or a link that takes longer than 5 minutes to read/watch. High quality content only. No hate speech or hateful messages to my gang stalkers. A look into the top posts of all time on this sub reveal a number of memes in which posters are indirectly making jokes about mental illness. Despite this, there seems to be some posts where people are genuinely afraid that they're being gang stalked. Here we see Reddit user Faded Pixel has uploaded a video in which one of the neighborhood electrical transformers is actually a surveillance device with multiple cameras hidden inside. Another video from user Karate in the Basement titled, "I've been noticing strange vehicles following me for a long ways. This one was recording me. Also strange phone issues with the new phone, including hearing a strange man on the phone call while talking to my friend. More info in the comments."
He's not looking at his phone, he's legit recording us. Roll down your window if he goes past us.
What is he recording for?
And look, he's literally like following our car with his phone. I'm gonna call the police on him. If we can get his plate, I'm gonna call the police. And he instead asked him to look over at us.
My first thought while watching this video was road rage. User Karate in the Basement would also provide more information. Talking to a girlfriend of mine for about an hour yesterday, when we suddenly hear ringing as if one of us is calling someone. She and I were both confused as neither of us were calling anyone. Then a man's voice was heard momentarily. I asked her, "Did you hear that?" She said, "Yeah, there was a man's voice for a second. Is he still on the call?" He said, "Hi, my name's Jason. I was trying to call my friend." While explaining how confused I was and that I've been on the phone with my friend for an hour, the call ended. Only 3 people in my house, all with 3 new phones. All have been having severe issues with their phones. We have calls dropping constantly, strange noises on the calls, and last night my phone reset itself about 20 to 30 times consecutively before it finally stopped. This morning nothing on my phone is loading. It's as if my phone can't keep up with whatever is on it. Aside from the phone issues, I've been having cars following me. A single car will switch lanes directly behind me every single time I switch lanes, even if there's no reason to switch lanes, and follow me for 10 to 15 miles before I finally take off or slam on my brakes. In the video I posted, my brother was driving and noticed the car. He said, "Isn't it weird that the man behind us is recording us?" I turned around and began to record him. When he finally noticed after I waved, he took off around us, while still having the camera pointed at us. I rarely frequent this sub, so I'm not sure the reasoning behind this, but it's happening to me. I don't do anything criminal. I'm not on sketchy websites. Why am I being treated like a criminal? It could be that the OP's brother was driving erratically, and another driver decided they would record so that they could contact the police. But in a comment, it seems as though the OP was only going 5 miles over the limit, which is pretty average for a regular driver. As for the cell phone problems, I have no theory other than the OP and their family are unfortunately located in a spotty cell service area. Unfortunately, no further updates were provided. In this post, user NoImpression3902 uploaded some pictures with the caption, "Gang stalking ass neighbor that sits in his car all day long pointed a rifle at me when I drove by." The user would provide more information in the comments as well. "He punched me in the face before. The guy across the street from him has also pulled a gun on me, and another guy around the corner hit me with a baseball bat in the face and broke my skull. I gave them all passes, but they leave me no choice but to pursue this issue because I have proof now. Hopefully if I force the laws to do something, they won't have a choice because now this is going to bring attention to them. I'm calling the ATF again tomorrow too, since Houston won't take me seriously." This could be a case of neighbors who can't get along, but the OP seems to have issues with everyone around them. A look into their post history reveals more videos and rants about their gang stalking neighbors. These posts are just a few examples at the top of a sea of experiences, and despite the occasional meme post, some of these appear to be genuinely concerning. Whether or not these individuals are targeted by some organization, personal life experience, or these are all mental health episodes is unclear. A good amount of these posts are clearly blown out of proportion, but the gang stalking sub is definitely worth exploring if you ever want to get into the gang stalking rabbit hole. Humanoid Encounters is a sub where users share their encounters with humanoid creatures. If you've ever had an encounter with a humanoid being, this is the place to post it. Have you been abducted by aliens? Have you bumped into a Sasquatch? Been chased out of the woods by something on 2 legs, but it didn't look human at all, other than being shaped like one? Please share your true encounter. The sub rules state that the stories must be non-fiction, with those deemed too ridiculous being thrown out. Anything from aliens, skinwalkers, and Bigfoot can be found here. One user by the name Perpetual Connection shared their experience on September 4th of 2021. "The man I saw through my night vision scope. I'm a hunter. I like to hunt wild boar specifically, though I have been deer hunting and have been known to get a turkey for Thanksgiving. I mostly hunt boar. For those of you that don't know, boar are a big problem in the United States. A sow can have 2 litters a year, and it's not uncommon for a litter to consist of 10 or more pigs. Given that pigs eat anything and everything, it's not hard to see why the Department of Fish and Wildlife makes it legal to hunt them with almost no restrictions. In my state, it's illegal to hunt most large mammals with night or thermal vision scopes, with the exception of boar and coyote. I've been saving for a year, mostly fun money. It's hard to explain to your wife that a scope that costs literally twice as much as the rifle with mounting it on was worth it, but I did it. I took it to a range and sighted it in. There was an area that was peppered with boar activity that I knew would be perfect for a night hunt. It was easily accessible with my truck, with easy to find spots that I could set up in that overlooked a large, easy to navigate clearing. The night started uneventful, mostly me tinkering with my new toy, cycling through the settings. I was a little impatient. I'd spotted multiple deer, but they were out of season, and like I mentioned earlier, my current setup wasn't legal for deer. I moved to a spot that I'd seen days earlier that probably wasn't much better than my first, but it gave me something to do, and a new angle to look around with my new scope. After about an hour or so of glassing the area, it dawned on me. This spot doesn't have much animal activity at all. No rabbit or owls. The deer that I'd seen were hundreds of yards from where I was. Why was this pocket of land so dead at night, but lively in the day? I'd set up around 10 p.m., and it was about to be 2 a.m. when I started to think about packing up. maybe setting up a target before I left and taking some practice shots. I heard a crunch come from the direction I came from before. I panned my scope and saw the silhouette of a small bear pushing through the bushes. It's important to note that my scope isn't exactly night vision. It's a thermal scope, kind of like a black and white version of what you see in the Predator movies. I adjusted my range and zoomed in a little. I remember jolting a little when I saw that it wasn't really a bear, it was a man. Because he was so low and hunched over, I thought I was looking at a young bear. Is that a game warden? It couldn't be. I would have seen the headlights coming from the road from where I was perched. And where could he have walked from? I was 30 miles away from anything and on public lands. I was about to call out when I adjusted my sights and noticed he was naked. No shoes, pants, or anything. I remember being disturbed by his movements, like a squirrel or something, twitching and grabbing at foliage, sniffing around and palming the tree. Was that my tree? The one I'd been leaning against earlier? The thought terrified me. He could smell me. Then he did something I still have nightmares about today. He squatted and placed his hands in the dirt between his legs and stared straight up like a dog mid-howl. And I heard it. A voice coming from that direction. A very compelling female voice. "Help! I'm lost!" There was a long pause, but neither of us moved a muscle. The center of my sights was trained at the dirt in front of his feet. I couldn't bring myself to aim directly at another person, and it went against everything I'd been taught about firearms. Were they lost? Was this some guy that had gone crazy out here? Why was his voice so feminine? "Help, please! I can't walk!" The voice called out. That's when I called bullshit. Not only could he walk, when I first saw him he was traversing the land with ease for a naked person, so I mistook him for a bear. That's a fucking trap. This guy's trying to lure me to him with the damsel in distress routine. Luckily, the lack of activity caused me to pack up most of my gear. I think I may have left behind a hat or sitting pad, but I didn't give a shit in that moment. I took my eyes off him for a moment to get my pack on. I buckled my chest strap and scrambled for my rifle. To my horror, he was in the same position, but his face was staring in my direction, and I swear I saw him smile. The thermal scope has an effect that makes animals' eyes appear white. How the hell had he heard me get up and put my gear on? He must have clearly been 150 yards away. "Fuck off!" I screamed in that direction. He stood upright, and it hit me how tall and skinny he was. Easily 6 feet and very lean. He took a couple of long strides in my direction, and I instinctively sent a round above his head into the tree line. He was freaky as hell, and he hadn't really threatened me. What would I tell the cops? I was unwilling and unready to shoot someone. He stopped dead in his tracks and hunched down on all fours. "The next one will fuck you up. Go away." He stayed on all fours, and this time, I had my sights trained at the center of him. His eyes were just above the grass like a large cat or something. I was trying to stop my trembling and knew that my voice had cracked a little on that last warning. I was terrified. That standoff probably only lasted a minute or two, maybe less, but it felt like forever. In an instant, he bolted left towards the tree line opposite the road. So much for not being able to walk. I could barely keep him in my scope, he was moving so fast. He disappeared into the brush and I sent another bullet sailing in his direction. I racked another round and tried to pocket that mag and sought for a fresh one, but I dropped it and didn't bother looking for it. I wasn't far from my truck and I wanted to get out of there. I could hear him in the distance, yelling in this weird sound that could have been a laugh or a cry. I scrambled up the trail and arrived at my truck breathless. I tossed my gear into the cab and kept my rifle in the passenger seat and sped off. For the longest time, I told that story from the perspective of having spotted some deranged crackhead, living off the land like some kind of caveman. I reported it to Fish and Game, but all they did was scold me for hunting at night alone. I never received an update. It wasn't until I told this story at a camping trip that my nephew told me about Wendigos, rakes, and skinwalkers. My story scared the piss out of him because the spot we were camping was technically the same forest I'd seen the bastard, just 50 miles east of it. He was so spooked that his mom had to take him home. She was really pissed. I've gone down the rabbit hole of one of these scary stories. I'm not saying what I saw was definitely a Wendigo or skinwalker. I'm saying that if such a thing exists, I may have dodged quite the bullet that night. Or maybe I was just a tweaker being Donnie Thornberry in the middle of the night. Either way, I thought I'd share. In a later edit, the user would also link an almost hour and a half long interview with a YouTuber, Funkalopagus, where he retells the events confidently. I'll leave a link to it at the top so you can check it out for yourself. One user by the name AGA1999 commented under the post and gave their theory. I live in Iraq. I know members of my family who either served in the military in rural areas or lived on the countryside. Like the stories I heard about the encounters my great-grandmother used to have with humanoid creatures who live in the woods of southern Iraq, they always described them how like you guys described them. Freakishly tall, white pale skin. They can mimic voices and lure people in by either calling for help or acting friendly. They're also considered to be shapeshifters and cannibalistic. They call them Tantals. It's uncanny how thousands of miles apart, such a creature appears to have the same description. The origins of this humanoid considered The origins of this humanoid are considered to be a jinn, which is an Islamic/Arabic concept of humanoid, powerful, invisible people who live with us on Earth. Some are good and some are bad, and there are hundreds of these types. The Tantal is a famous jinn that appears to humans to trick them. This sounds very similar to a skinwalker, another shape-shifting creature that is said to play tricks on people, sometimes befriending them before claiming them as a victim. Users on this sub often upload videos with their experiences as well. User Wazis posted this. It was recorded in Tikal, Guatemala a few months ago. Whoever recorded this video said that he had never heard anything like this in his years as a park keeper. What could it have been? Many of the commenters on this post were certain this couldn't have been an animal, and that it had to be a person, or some form of humanoid being. Original-10 said this, Guatemalan here. Tikal is where the ancient Mayan pyramids and ruins are. It's possible that it could be the singing of ancient Mayans that are still heard in the area today. That's not a normal sound an animal would make, especially towards the end where it was vocalizing. Other users stated that the screaming reminded them of the Latin legend of La Llorona, a ghostly woman who cries and screams while she searches for her children who she drowned in a river, though no conclusions were ever made. In a separate post, a Redditor in Costa Rica provided footage of a dog barking and attempting to scare away some creature walking on all fours. The way this creature walks is very unnatural, but we can't clearly see what this thing could be. Like these, there are thousands of other uploads and threads to explore. Many of them don't have answers, and some are clearly fake, but there are some posts in here that might make you question whether you believe in the supernatural or not. This next sub is not dark. In fact, it most likely started out as a joke between friends, but since its creation in October of 2011, this sub has amassed a total of 52.4 thousand members. In it, just like the title says, are just pictures of Ian sleeping. It seems as if Ian is aware of the pictures. I found a thread where the creator of this sub, Why Not Be Me Too, is seen replying to somebody in the r/mod club sub. User Mean Grandpa starts the thread. While funny and rather creepy at the same time, pics of Ian sleeping was a novelty. It had its 15 minutes, let it go. Even if it's just for the peace of mind of one neurotic woman. Get off your butt and come up with an idea to make some money instead. Make your explanation post, delete the sub and move on. But 4,000 subscribers. There's a community there, and it goes against everything I believe to give into way to one person's panic. That's how people get stoned and libraries get burned, and every setback to humanity. You are saying that it doesn't have value, so I should give up and work on something that has value. I can see why you would say that. I disagree, but I see your point. It's just art. Why bother defending it? You could do the independent server, or just make one where you exclude the girl, if it's worth a fight to you. It's not value, it's just, is it worth redeeming? Does it better the world? Art for art's sake can make the world a better place. Will you look back on this time later in life with fond memories? Is it worth the battle to you? I personally don't care. It's entirely up to you. You had your mind made up before you made this post. Another user would join in. But you were planning to keep it up for the next 5 years? At some point or another, it was going to end. It's a cool idea and I can see the value in it, but I can also see the shelf life. You don't need to keep working on the same piece of art indefinitely. You create something that you feel proud of and that people appreciate, but then you move on to something else. Your 4,000 subscribers means you accomplished something great, and that you could go out on a high note. It's not a sentence to keep doing the same thing indefinitely. Ian and I have a lease together for the next 4 months. That's how long indefinitely would end up being. And to my mind, going out in the behest of one panic-fueled internet illiterate would be the lowest note I could think of. So clearly Ian and Why Not Be Me Too are in on the joke together. But in 2012, Why Not Be Me would go onto the sub and post. Farewell, brave night watchman. This is the end. Ian has formally requested we stop taking pictures of him sleeping and putting them on the internet. Know that I had loved you all, and that pictures of Ian sleeping has made me feel a little bit more of a full person. I hope it's been a good experience for you all as well. Good night. They soon posted a picture of the space where Ian's bed used to be. In the comment section, they would provide more background. Ian and I are no longer roommates. There will be changes, delays, and sporadic posts over the next month as we get settled. But settled we will be. Do not fret, Ian friends. Change is normal, survivable at least. And sometimes, rarely, and on the lovely best case scenario, it is good. Sleep well, and I will keep you informed. It seemed as though Ian had officially moved out. In later, much less frequent posts, we would get more pictures of Ian, which were most likely taken whenever Ian visited his ex-roommate. Despite being innocent in nature, the fact that this sub has grown to the extent is a phenomenon in itself, solidifying this sub as one of Reddit's legendary oddities. Our last sub, r/truth is here, is a subreddit much like Humanoid Encounters, with 479,000 members and counting. According to the community bio, the truth is here is a database for personal encounters with the unknown. We archive nonfiction stories dealing with spirits, paranormal, strange happenings, and unexplained sightings. Some of us believe in otherworldly beings, some of us don't. Bounce your experiences here and open a discussion about what happened to you, or find solace in someone's similar story. Cross-posting, discussions, and open-minded skeptical analysis are always welcome. In this sub, we can find stories like this. My mom called me today with a bizarre story, pics included. My mother, stepfather, grandma, brother, and 2 sisters live in a house by Lake Dapper in Oklahoma. They have neighbors, but the area they live in is kind of rural. A couple days ago, my mom was going through her phone and found 3 pictures. One of her sleeping, one of my stepfather sleeping, and one of my youngest sisters sleeping. They were taken at the beginning of April, around 3 in the morning. She has no history of sleepwalking, and every other family member has denied having anything to do with the photos. I know my family very well, and they wouldn't do something like that. I also have doubt that any of them would even have been awake at the time. I'm just curious if any of you have experienced anything similar, or have reasonable explanation. I'm including all 3 pictures, but the strangest one of them all is the pic of my mom. It appears as if whoever took the picture was kneeling down next to the bed, besides her, almost by her face. The other 2 pictures appear to be taken from above them. I should also make it clear that they have 5 dogs, all of which bark at anything and everything. Because of that, we were all confident it wasn't an intruder. Any advice or suggestions are welcome. I'm going to include the link to the pictures in the post. Thanks in advance for any help. Like it said, the user provided the pictures from the mom's phone. The last one focused on what looks like a shadowy figure, although it could be something to do with the lighting and the shadows in the room. A now deleted user did provide a possible answer. Okay, so I've heard stories of people secretly living in attics, basements, or cubbies of someone's house. Is it possible that maybe someone you don't know lives with you as well? If so, they would know your house well and how to get around quietly. The animals would probably know them and not need to bark. This person would have been active while you weren't home. Since everyone is home and quarantined, the only time to go about their thing would be the early hours of the morning, when they know everyone is sleeping. Super creepy, but just a thought. With some of the stories I've covered, this theory seems very possible to me. There have been several instances in which someone is living inside another person's home, completely undetected. Another person by the name of Boom Mountains would also comment on their theory. So obviously I don't want to pry about your family much, but you said stepdad. If they separated fairly recently or something, is it possible it could be your dad? Would he have access to the house? And knowing the dogs, would they have barked at him? If he's passed away, I'm sorry for even suggesting it. Just wondering if that's a possibility. The OP would reply with, no, fortunately my dads get along well. My mom and dad split when I was 2 or 3, and her and my stepdad have been together since I was 10 or so. He basically raised me as well. I mean, they're such bros that my mechanic stepdad will work on my birth father's car. If what the OP is saying is true, then it's unlikely to be their father, leaving us with either the intruder or some unknown entity. A look into the Redditor's post history doesn't give any indications that they would lie about this, and it seems as though they themselves never got an answer, so if you have any theories, let me know. Another story I found on this sub was uploaded by user Fairy Cal on May 4th of 2020. Creepy email I sent to myself in the middle of the night. Not sure if this counts as paranormal, but it's definitely something creepy and difficult to explain. Due to COVID-19, I decided to stay home and quarantine with my parents. They live in a small town in Italy. Almost a week after I came back, I received a weird email at 2:43 a.m., sent from my own email address, as if I'd sent it to myself. The mail had no title, no object. It was just a creepy picture. You can see the word Bentornata, welcome back, referring to a female in Italian, written in rose petals over a mattress. Bottom of the pic there is something blue out of focus, and what looks like a lock of blonde hair. I deleted the email, afraid it would download some kind of virus, but I had to save the picture to see if something came up with Google Images. Nothing. I thought maybe a friend decided to play a prank on me. But how could they send it from my own email? Nobody knows my password. If you have any kind of explanation, I would deeply appreciate it. I'm still creeped out after a week and everybody's telling me it was just a stupid prank, but I can't stop thinking about it. In the post was the picture that was sent to the OP, and the comments she would go on to provide more information. A thread with user Knitting Honey went like this: I would be most concerned about a possible stalker situation. Creepy welcome back written in rose petals sent anonymously. Could be someone pranking you, or could be someone with weirder intentions. Be careful, and maybe let your local police know. If anything else weird happens, then I definitely report it. Edit. Also, how many people do you know with hair like that? Anyone close? As someone else said, the blue thing kind of looks like a flippy cover part of a phone case. Another thing you could look out for. And the more I think on it, I really feel like this is worth reporting. It's also possible someone was trying to be romantic like an anonymous love letter and didn't realize how creepy it was. But if they can't recognize boundaries, that could easily veer into stalker territory. Thank you for your concern. I want to expand a bit about the possible stalker situation. I mentioned in another comment about a guy who was obsessed with me and went to my house at night to see me. A long time passed since then, and he never made contact again. We went out August of 2018. We saw each other only 2 times. He said he really liked me and he wanted to have a relationship, but I didn't feel any connection with him and I broke it off. September 2018, I moved to North Italy to start university. Since then, I came back home only 2 times a month, in the weekend and during the holidays. When I came back for Christmas holiday during December 2018, he started messaging me asking to meet. I was trying to be nice, and instead of saying no, I don't want to meet you, I just said I was too busy with study. Then one night he called me on the phone at 11 p.m. I didn't respond immediately, but he kept calling me. When I finally decided to pick up the phone, he said he was parked under my house and he wanted to see me and chat a bit. I was furious. I said I would call the police. I called him crazy, etc. He started saying sorry and that I was overreacting. He just wanted to make a nice surprise. Anyways, he went away and since then no contact ever. I still follow him on Instagram and vice versa. I genuinely think he's forgotten me. He posts normal stories of him hanging out with friends, etc. I really think he was just very dense. Or maybe that night he was drunk, I don't know. It's not the first time I come home from a long period of time, so why send that message now? And after more than a year, he could have reached out again, or sent a message last summer if he wanted. I don't know, it just doesn't add up for him to do something like this. It could also be someone you know, a man or woman. There might not be an obvious reason for them to be stalking you. Not trying to scare you unnecessarily, just looking at all possibilities. The hair is weird because it's taken at a little bit of a distance, but it still looks like a piece is lying on the bed. So either they have absurdly long hair, they're wearing a wig, or it's more than one person. Also, why is the picture taken so badly? Maybe the phone case is obscure or something, or maybe they're just mentally ill. Kinda looks like the picture a kid would take, but I don't know whether a kid would know how to spoof your email address. There's not even sheets on the bed. Edit. As soon as I wrote that, I went back and looked. And maybe it's a duvet. Looked like a mattress cover to me, lol. Could it be taken in a hotel? In the US? At least I feel like I only see beds made like that at hotels. Other commenters theorize that it could be a spoofed email prank from one of the OP's friends, while others link the story back to carbon monoxide poisoning, like the Reddit post about the sticky notes. Although I wasn't able to find any evidence to back this theory up, the OP would check to make sure that the emails weren't in her sent folder, and upon inspection they weren't. This led people to believe that her email was spoofed, but others brought up the fact that if someone was in her email, they could have deleted the emails from her sent folder, leaving the story at a dead end, with no further updates provided by the user. Like the humanoid encounter sub, there are many rabbit holes in here. I recommend exploring this one for yourself to see what you can find. That's all for this one. If you like this kind of video, let me know, and maybe we can do it again in the future. And as always, thanks for watching.